with my guest,
Leah Middleton.
Do you want to say what you do?
So I'm an IT person, just software developer by day, gamer, other things at night, sometimes a coder on Twitch.
Nice. Sounds interesting. So let's move into the first topic, which is where I saw you from, which is the Whatever podcast.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your experience?
Oh, yeah. So Whatever podcast was, I kind of felt like I was sort of mean to those girls. I didn't really mean to come across that way. It's really hard to sit across from females or just anyone who especially is young, who doesn't really know a lot. And, because I used to be in their same shoes, and like, there's a lot of things I didn't talk about, but the one problem I always had growing up, being young, I should say, is how to navigate that life of trying to find someone and then sexuality, right? It's hard to, when everyone around you, especially the women, are like being more promiscuous than you are, and then you have doubts in yourself about your beauty, whether or not you have something to offer a guy. Why are you constantly being overlooked while girls who are, more promiscuous, they get guys all the time, and it always makes it, I think it makes it worse for the girls that come behind them, the generation that becomes behind them. It's like now they have to one up. They have to be more promiscuous than the last because, the precedent in a way has already been set. So just hearing them, it kind of made me so frustrated because I'm like, in a way, it was kind of messing it up for their own kids that they might not have, or that they might have, or the girls that they might mentor, growing up. And I'm just, as they grow up. So just to hear how they didn't see what they were doing was a problem kind of made me lose it a little bit. It should have been a little bit nicer, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I think everybody kind of wants to go through that kind of like hoe slut phase, but it's kind of shoving it in people's faces.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe you should back up a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to, hey, prostitution, all that shit, that's been around forever.
Do you think it should be legal?
Well, honestly, no. I don't think it should be legal. That's not to say it's not to say I know there won't be people who won't do it. We all know that there will still be people who will do it. But to have it so like normalized, that's what I have a problem with. Like, look, I ain't gonna turn you in. That's none of my business. But to have it so like in your face, so publicly normalized and accepted, that's what I have a problem with. It doesn't seem like what benefit is that given to society in a way?
I feel like if it was, it could kind of counteract the people who are too focused online with like porn and OnlyFans. Because now you can just go out and get it. $20 is $20.
True.
You want to watch something online and you want to get some action.
I mean,
maybe have some experience, get some confidence.
Yes, but then you run other unforeseen.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of other cons that come in it.
And that's what I'm like, I guess it's the other unintended consequences I see arising from such behavior.
Yeah, you can list all the pros all day, but if you don't touch the cons, then you're not really having a conversation.
That's why I'm like, that's why I feel like, hey, it's none of my business if you do it, but to have it be like normalized, to the point where like you say, most men or women who decide to go down that route, they will feel more, emboldened in a way, and more emboldened to just not get it from online. They'll go out and get the actual source, and who then knows the countless people who will regret making that decision because maybe they caught something. I'm just, it's just like, look, so.
Yeah, because I'm 30, so I grew up with cell phones. I remember that being a big deal. Your nudes going around school. Now they just sell it, $5.99 a picture.
Oh man, and I know, kids. That's another thing too. When I was on that podcast, I know kids can be cruel, because I remember when I was in foster care, and you know, the state had to take care of us and they gave us clothing vouchers, right? Sometimes our clothing vouchers couldn't cover all our uniforms because I was one of the schools I went to, we had to have an actual uniform. And I would have holes in my, you know, stockings. People knew it's because I was in foster care and didn't have money and poor. And I'm like, that was only, they would pick at me from holes in my stockings. Now imagine if your mom's naked. Like, bruh.
I've seen a few porns where it's like a stock photo of somebody being bullied, and the caption's like, "Tell your mom to do more X in the OnlyFans." It's like that's what other kids have to deal with.
Then think about the kids, how that's gonna affect them, how they're gonna look at their mom with such like this disgust. You know, I'm like, how? I don't think that's what any young person who has a mom and a dad, like as someone who they look up to. I don't think they want their parents to be degraded like that by other people who may not even know that their parents are actually good people. Like, like it kind of, I think, would put like a strain on the relationship doing that. But I mean, I think there's more honorable ways, even if you're struggling, more honorable jobs to do, to have your kids look up to, you know, and you know, they may not have the greatest Jordans, right? You know, they might not even get Jordans. They might have to settle for the brands at Walmart, but at least you're teaching your kid values. And, you know, who gives a damn about, you know, what their friends will say? I think honestly, the kid will probably stand up more to, you know, to just like, what's the word? Not really glorify their parents, but stand up and say, my parents, you know, more hardworking and all this other stuff. They're doing the best that they can, you know, instead of
they held their heads higher because they're like, I saw my parents struggle, and they, you know, woke up every day 5 a.m., 4 a.m. They
want to defend their parents more because what they did is more honorable than just laying on your back for something so easy, and then for the whole entire, like, how can you defend that? Like,
I mean, I guess you could if it was a little bit more anonymous. You're like, I'm just doing this because I need my car fixed. I just need whatever, you know, a few extra bucks here and there. But to try and get famous, it'll be the influence out of it makes it a whole nother thing.
But people don't even do that. The anonymity thing, the anonymity, right? I don't really think.
I mean, this is an age you probably couldn't. Somebody will find out who you are. But yeah, there's no attempt to be made. It's just like, you know, look at me.
I remember this one girl who I would go to school with in undergrad. I think I probably even talked about this on my podcast once, maybe, or just in my video before. There's this one girl who went to University of Florida. She was a friend of ours, but she worked at a strip club, like Mas Venus down in Tampa. It's really nice. There's Odyssey and Mas Venus that had hired really like creme de la creme type girls, and she was very, very pretty. She would go to school in Gainesville, but would do her, you know, stripping down in Tampa. So there would be like that anonymity, and no one would know her face. And I also remember going to school with a girl in St. Pete, and she was a business major. You look at her walking on campus, no one knew that she was a stripper. No one. And one day I was hanging out with some guys after the reserve. I was on my reserve weekend, and they wanted to hit the strip joints, and I was like, okay, fine. I had to be the DD. So we go to the strip joint that was in St. Pete, and she was there. I was like, holy shit, this girl I go to school with. She's in my calculus class. and she was so ashamed. So she ended up, I said I wasn't going to say anything. And when we saw her, I saw her next Monday in class. I like I said, it's none of my business. Like, I understand you got to do what you need to do. And so she didn't work at the club anymore. She ended up going to another club. But there used to be that that anonymity a lot of women wanted. They didn't want that secret being out there, but now it's like no shame.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the okay, it's weird.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to the next topic, which we kind of talked about a bit. Mm-hmm. It's more or less, how do you feel about the next generation, Gen Z women after that experience?
I'm very nervous and scared for them in a way. And then today I also saw, the whole thing with Riley Gaines and how she got attacked today. But what was very, disconcerting about that was the women there were more women voices like spewing hatred towards her than men that were in, just even looking at the video, there were more women spewing hatred towards her, telling her that trans women should be women than men were. And I'm just like, that is very sad. So they're like, I used to hear a lot growing up because I had, I sound proper. I didn't want, I guess I don't know what was ever prescribed to, like Black people and what they strived for growing up in the community that I grew up in from foster care. I didn't want that for my life. And I would be told, oh, you got some internalized, racism inside of you. And I'm like, no, this is just, I didn't grow up like this with my mom and dad. I didn't see any of this when I was with them. I thought, honestly, all Black people growing up in America live like me, like really nice. I never saw that other side. So now I see with these girls, there's like a lot of internalized like misogyny towards, just women who don't want to prescribe to with the majority of these women out here who are, I don't know why they would want to go against what's natural for women. I don't know why.
More traditional kind of lifestyle.
I don't know why they would want to do that. Why would you want a man to like take your spot? There were so many women that fought for us to even have rights, just to even have equal pay, like to even have like just an equal chance. And now that's one side of it that I'm like really nervous about. And then when it comes to just the promiscuity, like I said before, I think the generations that come behind, they're going to want to up the ante when it comes to their promiscuity because of what this generation
kind of like the slippery slope from the 60s. You had some of that sexual revolution, and now this is like the bottom of the slope.
Yep, it's just going to keep going up and up and up. And I used to think a lot of times too, like, why should that be any of my business, right? I'm not partaking in it. And I think that's another problem I had. I always thought that people would think like me, like I'm not partaking in it, so why should I care? I think that's nasty and degrading for society when it comes to social part aspects of society. So I'm not going to do it, so I expect them to not do it. And I'm like completely wrong about that. And I got my values because of what I was taught. Maybe these girls out here, they're not being taught.
That's something that gets brought up, the fatherless behavior.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my father never really taught me, well, my surrogate pops, I talked to him, now a lot about a lot of these things, but like my adopted dad, he never really talked to me about these things, but I just would see how he would interact with my mom, and I kind of understood what type of men to look for, I'm not gonna sit there and lie. There might have been times where they did argue, but I never heard it. I've never seen them, struggle. Even if there was some sort of struggle to pay the bills or anything like that, they always shielded us away from that. They wanted us to just have a childhood, nurture us. If we had any problems, just go and talk to them about it. My dad was into, he was a mechanic and stuff. So I always wanted to follow him. I felt like my other two sisters were always around my mom, but my dad was always by himself. So, I was always behind him. He got me my first computer, football, game stations, because I had boy cousins and I was a huge tomboy. I didn't really, my sisters were more like girly. I wasn't. So, I just, in a way, just learned from like, he just taught me how to, in a way, without really talking to me about it, how to have my own value and how I can, work with him and stuff like that. So, I know what a good man is, and I know what a bad man is, and it was all taught from him. So,
yeah, because I am married and we have 2 kids, boy and girl, and that's what we try to do too. If we argue, not in front of the kids. If we are struggling, just at least the kids eat, they're happy. I mean,
they're young too, so eventually, they can process that a lot better than adults can.
But I have heard stories of that too, and it's like, yeah, remember that memory? That's such a great time. And it's like, yeah, we were broke, we were struggling. It's like, wow, I never knew.
It's crazy. But I just...
So I think, yeah, role models are key and important for, I would say, both sexes, because I try to be like my dad, that he was a good role model. I try to be like him. I am the stay-at-home dad, so I try to make sure my son and my daughter kind of have certain values, and make sure you understand your emotions, and you courteous to other people's.
I do think for a time I got lost because there was like a time before like the system could allow my surrogate dad, because he was from the church, before he could be put on like my phone list. There was a time where I was lost. I didn't have any direction. I couldn't talk to anybody. There was no one there to help There was no one there to help explain to me like why, bad things were happening, why certain people are behaving like this and all this other stuff. So I did get lost there for a while, probably cried my eyes out trying to explain to myself that there are evil people in this world. I just didn't know how to do that as a kid. But I do believe that they're like having a mom and a dad that teach you those things, or even having, an opposite sex that in your life, just a mentor, someone, I think that is critical and important. I don't understand why people don't think so.
Yeah, the nuclear family.
It's like, what? You think kids should just be able to do whatever the hell they want with no guidance from nobody? Like, okay.
The nuclear family, there's a lot of talk about trying to erode it, kind of like the single mom aspect. You don't need a man, but you really do, for the support and to get that both sides, that masculinity but the femininity, to be when to be hard but when to be kind of soft.
Yeah,
there's always a balance to find.
I agree.
And something else it popped in my head about the next gen. Something I had heard was that when women love unconditionally, it brings out that motherly instinct. When guys love unconditionally, it brings out kind of like the protector. They're willing to lay down their life. So when picking a male, they bring, there's the topic of like the alpha and beta or whatnot. But yeah, why would you want somebody that's would run away and not stand the fight? Is that not true love, or just a weaker man? But on the women's perspective, if you're like, no, why should I feed him? He should be able to do it himself. Is that not like unconditional love, because you're not willing to take care of him in that aspect? Like the whole, like make me a sandwich. I have heard that is a relationship killer for the women.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because I think of the internalized hatred of you shouldn't submit to a man. And so that is a point that a woman would dig her heels in and say, no, I won't make you food. Don't tell me that. Don't. Even if it had been no issue beforehand, once it's said, it's like a line they'll draw in the sand. I won't budge.
When you think that, when you hear that from younger women, right, where do you think they most likely probably learned that from? Either...
I mean, it would hard to say, because I would say there's so many different factors, like single mom, single dad, or if the regular nuclear family, but or the media too. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's so many aspects of you shouldn't do that. But then something else I hear they bring up is the whole like boss bitch kind of trope. It's like, why would you submit to your boss, but not your husband.
I don't know.
You know?
I think it's because of the money. I think a lot of times, because I said this to myself before, but that's only because well, I'm in math. Well, my undergrad was more in math, so it made sense to me to, hey, if I ever get married and a guy, let's say he makes 60,000, I know I make over six figures. However, if we have to have that discussion, hey, I'm never going to tell him. I'm never going to tell a guy how much I make. I don't know. There's something weird about that. However, I have no problems with taking a lesser job especially if our combined, if our combined salary will take us over, and it gives me more time to, because I like to clean my house. I like to keep it clean. I love the smell of bleach. There's something about that. Coming home to that, I just like. So if that requires me to do that, I would rather do that, because I grew up in a 2-parent household. I know what it was like to have a nice, clean house. I know what it was like to have food every day on the table that my mom would do. So, and that's something that I've been trying to get back. So, I want it so bad since, my family was pretty much taken, split apart by the system. So I think a lot of people probably, if they've never had it before and it was really nice and lovely, they don't think it can even exist. Like, it's just some myth, right? Or even if it does, even if they do see those types of relationships, I don't know why they think the woman is being oppressed. Like, have you ever thought that maybe she just want to do it? I don't know. Have you seen the videos?
I've seen some of the memes when it's like F it. I choose to be staying home. It's better than having to work.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
you get more time with the husband and kids, in a sense, if that's your goal.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's the man or the wife, yeah, somebody has to sacrifice home life for work life.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can't find that balance, or they really fight for both and they end up miserable anyways.
And I don't know.
Something has to give.
And honestly, I think it's kind of weird too, because for some reason, I feel like women, when we say these types of things, when we go on, this rant, when it comes to this equality, why does it seem like it's the same excuses for why we say we want to have our own money, why we don't want to, why we want to submit to a boss instead of a man? Why is it the same excuse, the same reason as something they started back in the 1920s? Y'all act like men have never evolved. Y'all act like men haven't grown soft and let women into the workplace, let women into some of these, into CEO positions, all this other stuff. I think men have changed, but yet that mentality of, no, I need to still have my own money, I still need to be boss bitch. This is something that started back in the day where they had a legit reason. A lot of women who didn't have, we didn't have any opportunity. Well, a lot of women didn't have any opportunity.
Yeah, to be taken serious, you had to prove yourself.
Yeah, but then another thing too that a lot of people don't talk about is a lot of women did not have the opportunities. There was a very small, select few women that had opportunities, but they came from very affluent families. So Sigmund Freud's daughter, she wasn't a lot of women back then, because she came from a very affluent family. She was afforded opportunities where normal women couldn't have. So so I can understand why women back in the day wanted to start this whole movement towards freedom or whatever, and having more opportunities with, workplace, or being able to have money. So just in case they're in a relationship where the man is abusive, they can leave. But it's we're still using those same reasons. We're still using those same excuses now. But yet I have seen men change. If it wasn't for men, you wouldn't, because I think about all the laws that we've had in place, everything that was in place, men ran. But we have women in politics now. We have women as CEOs now. This was not a thing back in the early 1900s, but yet we still want to act like men haven't changed. We still want to act like there's still this patriarchy that.
Yeah, because we had queens that ruled. They went to war, but it was still mostly the men that built the nations that they ruled over.
I'm if it wasn't for men saying, being nice and letting us in these positions, we wouldn't even be in these positions. But now it just seems like a lot of times women want to overtake everything. I'm just like, yeah, that's not what I signed up for. Like what I signed up for, with, this whole feminist stuff was, yes,
I was just going to ask, would you agree that modern day feminist is more of a destructive force than a positive one?
Yeah, because they're not trying to work hand in hand with men. They're not. And I'm like, I thought that's what the feminist movement originally was, to work more hand in hand with men, not to say that we're more superior, or we're still being oppressed. Because I'm like, oh, I don't think we really are. And I'm like, I've had more male friends from the military get fucked over by the system than I have women, and like my, female friends. So I just like, I don't really, I've never bought into that whole oppression thing. And it, like, when I hear this a lot from white women, it just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts because I'm like, look, I've never been oppressed. I don't know what the fuck y'all, what type of oppression y'all been witnessing or feeling, but I've never gone through it.
Yeah, because I forget his name, but the guy that does the whatever podcast, didn't he read the definition of feminism? Oh. It's like you can't consider, you can't try and go for equality when the definition of feminism implies you're oppressed.
Yeah, I think it has some. I think he thinks it more. They're more of an advocacy group for more like basically women's supremacy. In a way, I kind of agree.
Yeah, because you're not trying to be the equal; you're trying to be the oppressor in some kind of like revenge ideology thing.
It's weird. I don't get it.
And I think that plays into the younger generation not being able to find partners because it's set up to where it's like it's hard for men to just approach in public spaces or in the workplace to stop being seen as a creep. Unless you're like I would say like above like a 7, then you can't get a pass. But other than that, it's hard to flirt. It's hard to talk to them without them taking it a different way.
And
or not understand the humor. I'm like, because I've heard that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Actually, I've been talking so much. Go ahead.
Well, that's fine. I'm a little quiet too, so you're the guest, so I'll let you speak a bit. But yeah, I've heard that about the workplace, is that it changes it. Men can't joke like they used to because you have to be aware of offending a woman, but now it's, offending anybody. You can't really tell jokes now. The wokeness in places is a different issue though. But yeah, it's hard. It's setting up a lot of people for failure.
It is. And honestly, so I've always been an introvert most of my life. I know it might not seem like it now, but we're one-on-one. If we were like in a crowd, I would be over there in a crowd, over there by myself, looking at the crowd and observing. I've just always been an observer. And I remember, saying, okay, I didn't get asked on prom dates, homecoming. I'm never got asked on dates. So, I figure also too, I missed my chance getting married in the military. I think I just got really jaded in the military because of my first time ever being cheated on. But I said, that's okay. I'll just find someone at work. Maybe I'll meet someone at work, right? Yeah, like a lot of women don't understand. Like there are a lot of women out there who are introvert and maybe they hope to meet their partners either from school or from work. And now it's become to the point where that might not even be a possibility because men are too scared to even approach women at work. And that's like, do you really want to live in a society like that? And then what's going to happen when, the younger generation have this feeling that maybe they're not worth, a guy's time because no one's approaching them, right? Well, we already set that precedent. We set that precedent that's fucking it up for the ones who come behind us. And no one's talking about that.
Yeah, that was an interesting point on the whatever podcast about, do you want the confident guy asking you out or the shy guy? And that kind of sounds like what you're talking about. You want the guy to walk up, be like, you want to go out? No? Okay, cool. Not the one that kind of lingers like, oh, hi, excuse me.
It's so different. Like man, I remember being in college, my undergrad college, we would be partying on the, I was friends with one of my sorority friends that would have the DJ, and we would turn the basketball courts into like party or like the tennis courts into like a outdoor party in Florida. And, guys would go out to girls, girls would go out to guys, your typical flirtation that you would do when you're young. That's normal, right? Like we probably can't even do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of mixed signals because it's like they want you to make a move, but don't be too aggressive. But let them still feel empowered that they chose you and not the other way around. But it's also you gotta read their minds and know what to say, not to do this, not to do that.
It kind of reminds me of this. Like, if you ever seen like a mom with her son, right? Um, like you ever see how moms, when they have their sons, and let's say the son is struggling or whatever, they're used, or I should say more like with dads too, you would want them to do things like okay, I'm gonna let you be the man of the house, or I'm gonna let you do some things, or like just so it builds up their self-esteem, right? That's what I would see my aunts do to my cousins. Like, this is going to be yours. We want you to actually do it. It's more to see how, if they will take on the role, take on a job, and do it without any type of help. And in a way, I felt like it was like a learning, a learning lesson and a nurturing lesson, right? If women could do that for their sons, but now I feel like women just want to do everything for their sons. But I don't know. Maybe back in the day it was a little bit different. Like, or maybe I was just weird. I would have my cousins where if they seemed like, someone was picking on them or a boy was picking on them, I would tell them, get up, stand up, fight for yourself, right? Like, like you can do this. Like whatever happened to just, let it, like encouraging, the opposite sex, or just encouraging them to be a stronger person, and sometimes just letting them win. Like, I mean, like, you ever played with a girl who knew, I don't know, like you knew that she was probably better at this game than you, and then sometimes she would just like intentionally lose a game, but she would make it seem like it's not intentional, like to, I guess, give the boy like a boost to his self-esteem instead of always being beaten by girls, like whatever happened to that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, now it's kind of like a competition to it. If you don't actually try to win, then it goes against like the feminist ideology. You're not a strong, independent woman if you let the guy go first.
I know. I don't know. I think it's just weird. I don't know. I was just reflecting on that. A lot of, and then another thing too that kind of brought me down. I used to be really fast. I used to run track and soccer when I was younger, and every boy would want to race me. Every boy. But then this one kid from South Africa, he was this white boy. He was so tall, and I was at that age where puberty hit, and no matter how much I tried, I came in second place. And then after a while, I just started letting him, win. I would, like, especially
just easier than trying.
Yeah, because I'm like, hey, like, you already know it's gonna bring down self. Every guy knows that if they go up against a girl and you
in front of a crowd,
yeah, it's gonna hurt their self-esteem, right? Everybody knows that, but I don't know. I just think it's weird these days. Sometimes, why can't you just let him win? Like, I don't know.
But to add to your point about the when you're talking about picking up, yeah, I think structure is good. Because we do that with our kids. And it's like, okay, just pick up your toys, anything that's from your room, go put it back. And they do fairly good. But sometimes they might little pushback. Oh, I don't want to, but that's normal kid stuff. And to your point, if it's different now or then, I think it's different now because in the past there was less technology, so it's like go entertain yourself, go play outside. So it engraved that sense of independentness, whereas now everyone's inside on the phones, stuff being brought to them. There's more overly mama's boys being produced.
Yeah. I remember back in the day when like the couple, like if your mom and dad would go out, they'll usually, and they had sons, and be like, okay, you're going to be in charge of the house while we have date night, right? Like that was like a responsibility. Like normally they'll always say like, look after your sisters, like that's just a normal thing. I've never heard it the opposite way. Like, okay, daughter, you're in charge of the house. If there was already an older son in the house, I never heard it the other way. And I think that there's a reason for that. Like, men is supposed to be masculine. They're supposed to be, protectors. So, and I believe every girl deep down inside know this. I know they know this. Like, come on. If you're being picked at and you got a bigger brother, good and well you're going to go to that bigger brother to honor, to defend your name, to honor your name.
Yeah, if you can't take care of it yourself.
Yeah, every girl knows this, but for some reason now saying that out loud means like you're not a strong woman, or you're rooting for the patriarchy. Like, please shut up. Everyone knows that, hey, you're gonna go to your bigger brother.
People bring that up about films, how it's laughable a small woman can throw big dudes around. It's like, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I like Atomic Blonde.
Oh yeah.
She used a lot more of the environment to her advantage because she was quicker, limber. She can grab something and just smash them. But yeah, head to head, you're not.
Most women, you're probably going to need something, some sort of object to help you,
or training, because you brought up your military now.
But
and that leads to the toxic masculinity people bring up too. It's like, as men, you're not allowed to fight. That's too aggressive. That's too.
They're just, anyone who says that, they're stupid. They're just full of shit. And I would advise them to tell men if we ever get invaded, at our border, I would advise them to have those weak men go and fight those men. I'm pretty sure the women will call them a little bitches, be like, oh my God, you can't fight. Where's your masculinity? We all know that's exactly what will happen. No, their mind will switch and flip because their instincts to survive will kick in, and they'll be like, no, I need a strong man, not some weak man. So everyone knows, every female knows this. And if she doesn't, she's going against her own, she's literally going against her own will to even survive and live. So it's just a power trip right now going on in society. And, sooner or later it'll balance itself out. And I just hope it's not too late, I really do.
Yeah. And something I want to bring up that we can't touch upon about the prostitution and stuff, that they want to say that sex work is real work, but then they get all offended when you bring up that if your boss gives you a pay increase, could he ask for like an oral during his lunch break? It's like, it's real work, right? You're getting that extra pay raise. But then they'll be like, no, it's different. That's harassment. That's this and that. It's like, but you're kind of contradicting yourself.
In a way, yeah. If you're
because you want it to benefit you, but not anyone else. Because I think somebody, sorry again.
No, you're right.
They brought that up, that it's like, oh, I'm going to be objectified anyway, so why not be in control of it?
I can't. Yeah, I'm like any woman who decides to go down that route and say that this is real work. It's not real work, because you're right. If you say that that is real work and it becomes normalized in society, okay, then you can't tell some company that, hey, in order to get this pay increase, you got to do this because this is technically
this
real
becomes part of your job now going forward.
Like,
either you agree or here's your package. See you on the way out.
I mean, the society says it's real work, right? So it's real
I
work.
see that meme online too. It's talking about if you want to end the internet thoughts, all you have to do is report them to the IRS, because they're probably not reporting that.
Oh, of course not.
But I think that's part of the greater issue, that taxes are just complicated. But yeah, they don't claim that. And I think that adds to part of the luxury and just boredom people have. It's just, and no direction.
Yeah.
You can just flash some titties and pay for a trip somewhere because you're bored.
It's honestly, it's so enticing because it's fast money. But I was looking at, I can't remember what her name was, but I know Black China decided to end her OnlyFans. But I know one thing that she was always talking about, how she always felt like she had to go one up one, because she might lose, with her, she was already famous, so she'd lose a couple of people, that ain't gonna be nothing. But for those who are just starting out, unlike her, like they'll always have to, be more provocative. They'll always have to show off more, and it traps you. It gets you trapped in that cycle. If you don't show more, well, then that's less pay. And if that's your only job that you're relying on, like you're gonna be more extreme with.
It's like a vicious cycle of boredom and tolerance. To keep them interested, you gotta kind of do a little bit more.
And it's like the one thing I would hate that people talk about, especially women, they're like, women like back in the 1800s, because this is I didn't bring this up on that whole whatever podcast, when they say that women from the 1800s were doing this. I'm like, look, the difference between the 1800s and now is a lot of them didn't really have a choice. I didn't know this, but back in those days, if you didn't get married and your dad, it would usually be your father who would have basically, who would provide for you. If your dad died, 9 times out of 10, you had to go to the brothel to support yourself. If you weren't married, you weren't doing. So it's like a lot of that stuff, women didn't really have a choice if they wanted to survive. They got into that lifestyle, or if they can try to be some indigenous, servant to someone. But if you did not get married, your prospects of probably the nunnery, a brothel, or trying to be someone's, servant in their house and hope.
Yeah, because anybody can clean.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
that's something I don't understand about
between now and back then. Then they didn't really have a choice. You have a choice. You decided to go down this route when you could have taken any role, but you probably wouldn't have been content with the money that you're getting. And you probably didn't want to put in the work to either educate yourself or learn a trade. So you took the easy route. But hey, if we actually mention that.
Yeah, because it makes sense when in hard times, you eat dick for breakfast so you can have bread for dinner. it makes sense, but why would you just want that if you have other options?
I don't know. It has to do with, like I do definitely think social media has a lot to do with that too.
Definitely. A lot of people growing up online. Like I said, having your nudes going around school was such an embarrassing betrayal. But now it's just, come look at me for $10 a month.
Exactly. So it's like, I gotta keep up with the Joneses. But if you don't got this type of money, then that means you're broke. And I'm like, yeah, in some places that probably does mean you're broke. But when you're chasing all this, what are you gonna lose? What are you willing to lose just to chase over things that come and go? Like I think that's like the bigger issue that no one actually cares about. Like, you're willing to sell a piece of your body all for materialistic things, and it will cost you something. And I don't care what any girl says. Every girl gets hurt when a guy leaves them. But you want to tell me you fucking all these guys and them leaving you, that doesn't affect you in any way?
Yeah, I meant to bring that one up too. Do you listen to rap?
Yeah, I do.
Do you know Hobson? No, okay. Because he has a song in mind of Hobson, 4 or 5. But he has a line about it, something like, "You go to the club to try and find your Romeo, and then wonder why you get played." And you got to take a look at your own life. Where you're trying to find these guys, the type of guys you're trying to go for. I thought I had another point, but yeah, it's crazy how they're willing to do it. Now I remembered. They want to say, it's a such shaming to bring it up, and it's little D energy and whatnot. But a slut does engage in sexual acts for personal pleasure. So if you're not selling it, I can kind of understand the OnlyFans if it's personal. But a whore does it for personal and financial gain. So if you're still getting the influence and the large following, that's not their personal gain.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you can't, if sex work is real work and you just don't like the name whore, but you can't really shame a whore if she's doing her job. And if it's real work, like, you can't sugarcoat it.
It's the mental gymnastics that they'll speak to themselves and try to manifest. They think that it's going to manifest into everyone's
different,
mind.
or that
just like,
you should just accept it.
This has been going on, and like they say, for a lot of them say, this has been going on since the dawn of time. Yeah, that has been going on since the dawn of time. And also being called what you are, if you do
Again,
those
the
things,
survivor, it's easy to
has
trade
been going
sex
on.
for something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got food, you know, I'll do stuff if you let me have some.
It's like, look, I like when I just think about that too, you know, I wouldn't do that. I would rather have a man, you know, I would rather just, you know, like the older I get too, and the more I started getting into more adult stuff, like buying a home and shit like that, you really do realize, you start to really realize that, you know, life is not easy. You need a partner for a reason.
And here in America, it's so easy that a lot of people don't grow up. I think that leads into a lot of the suicide aspect. I heard online that when teens say they want to die, it's not literal, it's spiritual and kind of metaphorical. They want the kid to die so the adult can live. But we're in a society where we can have a lot of adult man babies.
You're probably right. I remember being in foster care.
Because there's always that safety net and that comfort.
There was like, I remember being a teenager.
And just being like, the government should take care of it. Why should I have to work? Why should I have to struggle?
The most suicidal I felt was actually during foster care. I did at that point, I wanted to grow up so fast because in a way I did want my younger self to just die. I hated being trapped. I felt like I was trapped everywhere I turned around. And the only way I could escape actually was like being in solitude or running away. And even while running away, I had to keep a low profile because I was so scared to get caught. If I got caught, that means I would go back to the system. So I would purposely isolate myself to stay on the down low. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, they look to the government as the solution. And when you had a life that's so great, and then you hear the people say that, oh, the government actually, they should be doing more to protect us and all this other stuff. When you hear that from someone who had a life that was great and then went into a system where the government literally controlled every aspect of my life, like joining like sports at school, who I can even call on my phone. Like they had to be approved on an approval, like getting a job. Like they controlled so much of my life. And when I hear, like, I remember trying to emancipate myself. So like when I hear this whole crazy crap with kids can go without their parents' permission and get their shit chopped off, I couldn't even try to get a job, even when I was old enough to get a job without their permission. And it drives me nuts to hear this crap now. I'm like, y'all, they don't care. They do not care about you. They do not care about your children. This has everything to do with just trying to buy votes. They really don't give a shit about you. And when you retire and you realize that your Social Security is not going to cover everything because you put so much faith and hope in the system that there will be something there left for you, you'll quickly realize that, hey, you're just a cog in a machine. You're just a number on some spreadsheet. They really don't care about you. And when you retire, they'll go through your whole entire life to see how many hours you worked for them, how much you made, what was your actual worth. Because they like to say everyone is invaluable, right? No, they will actually look at how much you were worth your whole entire life and say, this is how much you will get to retire on. This is your Social Security. You think everyone will be treated the same then? You think everyone's going to get the same amount? They're not. You literally have a value to your life, but they'll sit here and tell you that everyone has the same value. It's like, I can go on hours about that stuff, but
no problem. But yeah, I think some social programs have their merit, but it's keeping them alive when they obviously failed is an issue, but also in practice, it just gets messy.
Yeah. And then inflation goes up. So
yeah, different tax rates.
It's like what you thought you would have when you retire, that nice, by the time you get to that retirement age, that money will be shrunk because, well, inflation went through the roof. So, what would have been $2,000 a month probably now is only will be maybe 1,400 or 800 or 1,000.
Yeah, and like you said, it's one thing to try and separate home and work, but when your work is dealing with people, you can't just see them as just numbers. But I think that it's vastly underwhelmed with staff and just the bureaucracy that comes to works.
It's sad. I mean, all you gotta do is just go talk to some old people who are on Social Security, only on Social Security. I'm pretty sure they probably would have done things differently if they could have the time.
My dad laughs. He works at a hardware store that you'll see some of the old folks come down here in all summer so they can get away from their winter. Well, I had that mixed up. They come in for all winter to get away from those, and then leave in the summer. But they have like these big old motorhomes, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we'll argue over like nuts and bolts for a few cents, being like, "Oh, I'm on a fixed income. Maybe you shouldn't bought the IRV then."
I'm like, look, I'd rather live small now. So I'd rather live small now so I'd rather have a lot of money so to retire on, because I think a lot of people get it all mixed up these days now. They want to be fake millionaires and live it up now, spend all their money. Yeah,
because it's easy to fake it online. But also, I heard that about the dark side of like cruises is that a lot of old people go on them, just constantly going on cruises until they die, because it's better than being in the home. They're taken care of more, better.
Wow, I never heard of that.
Yeah, that's why if you go on a cruise, there's likely, I've heard, a good probability that there's a dead person in the freezer in that moment. Because they'll just spend their money until they die or until they run out, and they get treated better food, better sunlight, more activities than they would in just a home. And they're not alone. They're a bunch of people.
I never really understood that either. Like if my surrogate parents, they come from a big family, so they have people who will look after them. I'm pretty sure they would never put them in a home. And I remember back in you tend to see that more with like foreign families here, where they like when the parents get old, they'll still keep them at the house, right?
Yeah, they have multiple generations in one house.
They won't send them to a retirement home. I have a lot of Italian friends, Russian friends. They tend to take care of their old elderly at the house instead of sending them off to these homes. I don't know why when it comes to, Americans, like.
I think it's a bit of the selfishness, because I was going to say that sounds like that's on the rise of the kids being like, no, I don't want to take care of my parents when they're old. It's easier just to not deal with them, put them in the home. But yeah, I want to say, because I'm part Hispanic, my grandma's from Mexico, and I want to say that's a big thing with the Hispanic Latin Americans.
Yeah.
As I don't know if it's the oldest or the youngest daughter. It's like that's your role, is to take care of me when you get older. You're not going to marry. You're not going to do anything else. You take care of me.
And the crazy thing too, I never understood this either until like when you get older and you understand these things, why you get married when you're younger, you have kids, you stay together, you just work through things so that when you're older, and when your kids get to that point where they want to marry and all that other stuff, and if you've had them at within a certain time frame, you probably won't have to take your kid to daycare, because mom and grandma could be in the house looking after your kid. Like I can't remember how many times my adopted mom would send me to my grandma's house to look after me if they need to go do certain things. And hey, that's a cost that's down on health.
Healthcare is expensive too.
Childcare is fucking expensive. And then some of those places, they're not the best. You have no idea who your kids are being raised.
Even with family, sometimes there's not a lot of people you can trust. But daycare it's better to be with family than kind of complete strangers for so many hours of the day. But yeah, that's less cost. But I heard people bring that up to you about how feminism is kind of like a scam, so that the government can tax you 2 incomes instead of just the one.
Oh yeah. 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 Because there is, I think when you get married too, isn't there like certain like, is it, I don't know how taxes go for married couples, but I would think it's
I think
better.
it's slightly different tax rate. Um, but yeah, because there are some tax benefits to getting married. But I think that's another issue about divorces going on the rise. Um, it's like, why get married when your partner can just divorce you at any time and take half your stuff?
That honestly, I think, I don't, you know, I remember when I was younger, and if anyone who got a divorce, their parents got a divorce, it was something that we were sad about, you know, like, um, and then even when I was in foster care, I've never heard anyone cry about wanting just a single mom. I've always heard like for Christmas, God or Santa send me a mom and a dad. I've never heard this whole single parent crazy crap, but it's been so normalized, and I do think there is some sort of monetary benefit that uh, judges, the courts get from splitting up families. And, so many women just play right into that. Like, and then they'll turn around and say it's the system that always fuck them over, that keeps fucking them over. It's the patriarchy of the system. But you give the system so much power. And you don't even see, it's like, do you hear what's coming out of your mouth? Do you see what you're doing? You are actually helping the system that you hate so much. But no one ever sits back and reflects on it. And when I see like the divorces going higher, I don't know what has contributed to it. I don't know. I just prayed and hoped that would never ever happen to me. And I think that's probably another reason why I just was so scared to really meet or devote so much time when I'm in my 20s to meet someone, because honestly, I think I was scared of divorce. And I honestly was scared of, I think that instinct to want to survive, because of foster care, it was so strong in me. Like, I don't ever want to be on my own. Like, well, if I am on my own, I don't want to ever have to depend on someone else, because, the government was in control of my whole entire life, and I saw how they failed me. So that fight or flight instinct, it just stayed, like, it just stayed there for
ingrained.
me. It was so ingrained, and I was like, no, I don't want to look at a guy. I don't want to. And it was never because I hated men. It was never because of feminism. It was all because of fear from what I had experienced from someone saying, oh, we'll be there for you. We'll always be there for you, in the form of government. That just scared me. So, I think that's another fear that I have for a lot of young people. If they decide to embrace socialism and have socialism there, and they realize that it'll fail them, they'll kick into this hyper, they'll just be more hyper focused on surviving and not really building a relationship. Or
I think that partly ties into like the idea of gender roles. I think divides a lot of people, because you got I think that plays into kind of like the child. Some men don't grow up and they expect somebody to clean up after them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you ever lived on your own, you would clean, you would do the dishes and cook, wash your own clothes. Why all of a sudden would you stop because you're married? You should still continue. It's your house, your clothes, your dishes. But I don't know how much of that really plays a role, but based on what I see on social media, it kind of seems that way.
Yeah.
It's like some people don't want to put in that box, but it's like there's responsibilities you have to do. Someone has to do it. I think a lot of modern times has an effect on it too, because when you think about like tribal, I think it was both stayed at home. Sure, the wife or the mom had watched the kids while the dad went up and did the hard labor, but both parents were home. Both watched. Both were there to oversee the growing up, even into more modern times, I would think that, from my knowledge of history, even if you had a shop, the shop was attached to your house.
Oh yeah.
More or less, so you wouldn't have to travel that far. It's not until more modern times where you have to leave the home to go to work. It causes issues too, because and then one parent's gone, puts stress on the other one to step up.
Oh, that kind of reminds me of a lot of the. I've never been to New York, but I remember watching some shows where you would see like the bodegas, and you'll have the upstairs over like the living, and so family was always there.
Yeah, you didn't want to go too far from your home, and then you can always teach the kids the your trait, which a lot of people bring up like nepotism, but I think in a way it benefited us because you taught your kids your skill, whether it was blacksmithing, farming, woodwork, or shoemaking, whatever it was.
And then you're actually you're giving something back to society in a way. It's like when I see nepotism being a bad thing, honestly, is when
like it can be, but I think it just has some good.
Well, if it's a family business, I don't really see that as like nepotism if it just stays family and you're not hiring anyone else. Let's say you have a big ass family and your kids are going to take over this business and your other kids are going to take over this business, but it's just all going to stay. I don't see anything wrong with that. But when I definitely see nepotism is when you open it up to everyone, but you always put your kids first. Like that right there, I'm like, no, they should be given the same shot as everyone else. If we wanted to keep it, it's like obviously it's going to be it's ethical issue at that point. Like this is not right. Like, don't even get me started because that's honestly what we see. What the craziest thing when I hear people talk about nepotism too, the ones who always talk about equality and all this other stuff, they are the ones most guilty of nepotism. For instance, Biden is pretty like he is very. You can tell all of his whole entire family was nepotism. Hunter would never be in those positions if it wasn't for nepotism. So, but he always stands on his podium calling for equality. I'm like, you're a rich guy. It's very, 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 very rich of you to say that.
That's a whole nother issue getting into Biden, the whole Biden family. But we could skip ahead because one thing I have written was, how do you feel about Trump's arrest and all that right now?
Oh, Mr. Trump. I honestly think it's a distraction because I've been looking into other things like our currency and stuff like that, and partnerships that have been happening around the world that's pretty much rivaling our economy. But I do think that everyone can tell this is politically motivated. Everyone, because I mean, now I don't know if you heard about the judge that was overseeing how he had only he had only donated to Democrat causes and all that other stuff. He had even donated to a cause that literally is called Stop the GOP or Stop Republicans from basically getting into office. And now, and his daughter worked for Kamala Harris.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
And I'm just like, bro.
I think still currently it's listed, or it had been, but then they removed it from like LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I'm like, bro, you as a judge, if you're supposed to uphold the law, shouldn't you yourself recuse yourself from this? Like, you want to sit here and talk about ethics and upholding the law, but you won't even obey it. And not to mention, I think they said that he can only donate to things that are in his state. I don't know what state this guy is from, but I had to double check. But apparently they said he donated to these causes that were out of his state or supported people that were out of his state.
Because I've heard people bring up that he's like, we have all these indictments, but I can't tell you what they are. And it's like, why not?
What's the charge? Like, y'all say he's trying to cover up the charge, but you won't tell us the charges. And honestly,
because if it's just about misspending campaign funds, how many times have other people been guilty and just paid a fine?
You know what I've heard? It's not even for instance, they're actually saying it's an extortion payment, actually. So in a way, if you say I am going to release this information unless you pay me, and isn't that what we would call extortion? If that's
blackmail, yeah.
Like, isn't that? And there's I'm sorry, but no no one in our society has been ever indicted. When you talk about presidents, apparently Bill Clinton, I don't know if you knew this, but apparently Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton had like this basically harem of girls, women that she would use for fucking Bill Clinton. I'm pretty sure he probably
I have heard that. I haven't heard quite that she was involved, but I have heard that.
Yeah, list the women.
What's her name? Monica wasn't the only one.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure
she's just the one that more famous payday.
I'm pretty sure he probably paid them off, and I'm not saying them under. I'm not. I mean,
I've heard people bring up that she herself has said that they never had sex. People brought up that like the lawyer said that he paid the money, but then was never reimbursed by Trump. So it's all kind of confusing. But yeah, I definitely think it's a distraction because I heard something about Leonardo DiCaprio say some Chinese guy donated some money
to the
Obamas running again for his campaign.
I'm
and like, foreign influence.
That is weird as hell. Why is an actor, testifying to this? I'm like,
well, I want to say the guy that propositioned him, he was involved with the Wolf of Wall Street, so that's how they knew each other, and he was like, "Oh, I want to donate all these money
to the Obama."
Yeah, and it's like, I can't because I'm foreign. Can you help me?
I think that right there is messed up, and then how apparently this whole thing about Trump is like a clerical issue, right? Like, oh, they docked something that was supposed that they said was a legal fee, but it really wasn't a legal fee. I'm like, okay, so I'm pretty sure if you want to talk about the whole dossier with Clinton and all them, right? So how did they document how they paid for this dossier? Did they say this was legal fees? How, like, seriously? Like,
yeah,
if really want to get into
somebody
this,
like Trump, they hand you an invoice and you're just like, whatever, pay it. How are you supposed to know?
Like, I'm pretty sure that shouldn't have been classified as a legal fee if you're going to make a fake dossier. That's a consumer. You're as a consumer trying to buy this product, and that's definitely making a false dossier is just not something I would think would be a service. Legal would be.
It was not just that.
It's against the law. So
sure originally they were saying it was past the statute of limitation, but then they extended it. And it's like, we see what you did there. You extended it so you can trial it. Because if not, then you couldn't have because it was past the time.
Now imagine if he was black. And this is past the statutes of limitation. I'm pretty sure BLM, everybody would be coming out saying how this is a gross injustice. You're going after this man, knowing good and well this is past the statute of limitations. Why are you doing this?
Not just the race, just if it was a Democrat.
Oh, that too. I'm just like,
you would defend it, the Democrats. But yeah,
I'm like, it's wrong.
Something else.
It's so wrong, and like how they don't even see it.
I've seen like the all the merch coming out, like the ripped Donald Trump with the tattoos and stuff. They're pretty funny. They're like, watch, he's gonna come out with a rap song next.
He gonna get his stripes, bro. He about to get that card.
That extra street cred.
He's about to get that street cred, bro. I'm like, it's not gonna help. I think it's gonna just backfire. I do think, honestly, to be honest, this is what I think happened with the DA, his wife running on, literally campaigning how they were going to get Trump. I think their establishment pretty much tasked them with this task. Like, you either get them or you'll lose your job. Something might happen.
It does seem like maybe he's out to make a name and not like some big grand thing, because it just seems like it's still in your face.
Yeah.
I want to say there were reports that the FBI turned down to investigate because they're like, we don't see a crime here.
Yeah. It was that the FCC, that committee that goes over the campaigns. They didn't find anything, and the DA that was in his position before, he let it go. And I'm like, why do you think?
So it's not even like
something?
Federal; it's state, but they're trying to make it a big thing, and a lot of people are saying it's either it's personal that he's trying to make a name, or they just want to stop him from coming 2024.
I think they do,
because if you have felonies, you can't win again.
Because they're and then even if, I'm like, I don't know, like if they I don't know if Trump can even have a right to a speedy trial, but they're even saying that their next court date is not going to be until December. Like, what? We already know what you're trying to do. That's like right around the corner where you
basically when he has to announce.
Start, yeah. And I'm like,
well, I think he already did, but actually get into campaign mode.
Yeah, I think that usually start for most people around January, and like you're forcing him to even be there. Come on, like whatever happened to the 90 days to a speedy trial, the burden of proof should be on the state, not on the defense. And I'm just like, hey, I've been in these positions before and I kept my mouth shut. No, there is not going to be any sort of continuance. Nope, because you have 90 days to prove that, like, I should say prove. You have the burden of proof is on you, not me. So you got 90 days to do it or else it's going to be dropped. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what? Like, if there is continuance, like, does he even have, maybe because it's in the whole nature of it, is he even afforded a right to a speedy trial? Like, if he did, decide to do a continuance, why would he do that? It doesn't make sense, because if you yourself as a defendant decide to do a continuance, you've given up your right to a speedy trial. I'm like, I don't really see Trump doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, maybe there was a reason. I just don't know.
Yeah, because you don't know what he's planning, Trump. I'm sure he has a few scenarios planned out, I would imagine. Anybody in this scenario, what they might do, how you're going to respond, how it affects 2024. But yeah, in December, if you haven't already started, it makes sense you're gearing up for the new year to start.
And honestly, I think it's, in a way, I do definitely see that as a way of, election interference. I definitely do see that, because you're purposely pushing it off that far, forcing him to be there when the other lawyers say that, well, he doesn't really need to be here. What other reason do you have, other than to keep him from campaigning, to keep him from talking to the people and telling him what his plan is, telling him what his platform is? I mean, if this was a Democrat, I'm pretty sure everyone would be up in arms, especially AOC and her fake self. So everyone knows this. But I guess since it's going the other way, and I was listening to this. I was listening to The Hill today. That's one of my favorite ones to listen to, because it does have more bipartisan voices on there when it comes to the news. And there's one lady today, I can't remember, Inez, whatever, she was fighting back and, standing up and talking to normally the co-host there, Brianna, that I sometimes just can't. She's very brainwashed, wrapped up into the whole narrative. And then you have like the lawyer who's he does not support Trump in any way, but Barowitz, he was on the show today. And he's a Democrat himself, and he pretty much his book is like, Get Trump. It's time to get Trump. That's literally what it's named. And he goes over how this is not a good case, and he explains it all in his book. And it was weird because the other host, who's more, she says she's she's not of the, well, she says she's a leftist. She was hoping that the lawyer, the professor, would basically be on her side, and he wasn't taking them. Like, this is a Democrat to a Democrat telling you that, hey, this is wrong. And, when you start hearing that from the other side, I think those
even people in the center who have issues with Trump are like, yeah, it sounds kind of sketch.
Yeah, I'm like, I think maybe you should.
I think if they go forward, it probably will backfire on them.
Oh yeah, I'm like, maybe you should the most.
It's gonna hand Trump the win.
It's like a lot of these individuals, they are not strong supporters of Trump. I'm pretty sure a lot of them probably detest the guy. But if they're willing to stand up and say this is wrong and this will backfire, I would think the DA would be wise and listen to them. But
or some higher up being like, cut it out.
Yeah, but it's not happening. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just super weird. Mm-hmm. Damn. But What do you think about? So, with that being said, you saw how the shaman got released right before Donald Trump got indicted, all because of that video, right? Well, the videos that Tucker Carlson had.
Well,
put
I
out,
heard some people saying that he was actually scheduled to be released. That is a bit of coincidence that the two happened, but he was scheduled to be released at that time.
Do you think he probably would have been released? Do you think that he only got released because of the footage? The new footage that the public finally had, that got, they got to see the whole narrative, not just I guess, what is it? A lopsided
I would say
narrative.
If it played a role, it probably secured his release, because if he was scheduled and then the videos get released, I don't think they would be able to then come and try to add more time, because now we see he was led around. It's not trespassing when you're getting led by the police.
I didn't know he was scheduled to be released before that.
That's something I have heard. I have to look into it. Or I don't have my phone to pull up.
If he was scheduled to be released, I think when that video came out, it just sort of solidified that, hey, you guys were wrong. You need to release him, because, in a way, those January 6th, that's why I think they political prisoners
wouldn't be able to keep him for longer by making more charges, because it's clear he shouldn't have been in there.
It's just messed up. I think I want to get an RV. Speaking of RVs, I kind of want to get an RV for myself, since a lot of my jobs tend to take me more places, and I wouldn't say take me more places. Arizona, well, Tucson doesn't really have a lot of jobs there. I feel like it's very much more not industrial, but service related. Like if you have a service business type thing, not too many like software jobs, I would say. So I hate renting. I would rather just buy my own little
Yeah, that's a lot, since a lot of people are moving from California. We've noticed all the housing going up.
Oh man, how is it here? Has it gone like trying to buy a home in Tucson? Like all the cash buyers are coming from California. I think we're just buying left and right.
It's a lot cheaper. But I don't know the exact numbers, but I think if we sold, we can make maybe like 40 grand from what we paid for it. And we've been here about 5 years, going on 6.
That's crazy. That's like an insane return ROI in such a short time. That's like.
And I wonder. Next, my wife likes to look at like the realtor, just to look at houses, something to kill time, and she's noticed how much everything's gone up in just the last few years.
My babe, like a couple of days ago, it was like last week, actually called me to see if I wanted to take some equity out, because the value of my property was around, it had went up 30 grand. And I'm just like, this house was just built in 2020. I couldn't find anything inside the city that was affordable. And even because there was like that in the Swiss Canal off Africa, where they were having it was like a last year sometime, some blockade.
That ship.
An accident had happened, and it was causing lumber to like go through the roof too. Like a lot of stuff that needed to be built for houses. And then, they were getting lumber from Canada. And like the new homes that were being built, they slowed down. Like I wasn't able to move into my house until a month after it was supposed to be ready for me. And when I decided to finally just sign, like, because the cost of lumber, the shipping, it was going up like 10 grand every week. So by the time I finally said, okay, fuck it, I need to just get into something right now, it had already gone up 30 grand. So when I first looked at the house, it was literally $199.99, like $199,000. By the time I signed for it, it already had reached $230,000.
Crazy.
And it was already scheduled. to be a month late. I'm like, who the hell elected this man to office?
I know, it's funny. I've seen the meme. I think it was about mid last year when it's like, what? He's only been in office a year? How did he go so bad so fast?
It's because, well, he's always had a history of really bad public policy and international policy.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Did you want some more? You good?
I'm good. This is something that is like known. He has a really bad history on that.
I think regardless of if Trump won, I think things probably would have still been hard with COVID and then the blockade.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think a lot of the policies did not help. Or still aren't helping.
Yeah. I think with destroying our oil, our dependency on oil, I think that really hurt a lot of people. I don't think they really understood, like, hey, like, you know, with being an engineer too, we have this thing called redundancy, right? We never decide to shut off something or shut off a server or anything without having the backup up first. So, well, the one that we want to, you know, transition over to, we will never shut off the one that we already know is working, the resource that we already know is working. We would never shut off that computer before the other one is already up and running, has been tested, double tested, triple tested, and we know that it's worked. Once we know that that works, then we make the switch over. And it's like, if it's done correctly, it's a moveless transition that literally would be a patch overnight. You come into work the next morning, you won't even know anything bad happened. But the way that we are going about, like, you can tell these people are just playing games. They're not engineers. They're not planners. They're politicians. And they're just they're acting on what people want to hear instead of doing what's right for everyone. And a lot of people, I think, you know, hey, they're giving, I mean, hey, you're getting what you voted for. This is what you wanted. But you didn't clearly think about all the steps that would come, all the little things that would need to take place first for this to happen. And I remember about all this, you know, this new renewable energy, because I had thought, okay, so there's this one school up in Michigan, East Michigan University, that did have a program with renewable energies that I thought about doing for a master's. And this was back in 2016. So I'm like, I don't want to hear that we weren't trying to move towards that, because we were. Mm-hmm. But you guys were trying to jump ahead, knowing good and well that system is not all in place to support everyone. And in order for you to give up all your oil, it's the dumbest thing ever, unless you're intentionally trying to cause pain. And I'm like, a lot of my grad students, a lot of my friends from grad school were always pushing this. And then, you know, they talk about student loans and all this other crap. Now everything is so much more expensive, and your student loans, guess what? They still haven't gone away. So not only did your voting made really hard policies for everyone, including yourself, everything is more expensive. Your student loans are not going to get wiped away, and now you're going to pay the interest goes up, on student loans. And now you have, more on student loans, and everything is more expensive. So it's like, did you actually end up getting what it is that you want, or did you just make things 10 times worse? It's like, you're just greedy and you weren't content. Like, hey, I got student loans, but at least I didn't. Because
I used to listen to like Reddit stories, and I remember some talking about like bad bosses or stupid bosses. They would fire somebody and then like cut the access off, which would backfire, and they would lose a bunch of stuff that they were working on, or like the scheduling. And so when you think about how some people say that like half of the people are like average intelligence or below, it's like there's some not so bright people out there that don't know how things work or they function, or they try and do things too fast, because that's something they talk about with like Greta Thunberg. It's like you can't just shut things off without having that backup already ready to go, because everything stops. And when things stops, it causes all kinds of different issues.
I think a lot of people,
and it's hard to get it back going. I think that's happened with COVID.
Time. I think a lot of people don't understand the concept of time. And it wasn't until I started actually like trading in the markets, and getting involved and learning how finance works, because 2020, there's a lot of downtime that a lot of us had. You could have learned things and to try to understand what's really going on in the world and, you know, improve your finances and stuff. Or you could have gone the other route, got really greedy,
lazy.
You know, just do whatever you want, be lazy, do all the whole, you know, OnlyFans, I'm just going to make this fast money comes fast, you know, easy problems or whatever, hard problems. But, I took the time to learn, and the markets, the one thing, I don't listen to what that White House press secretary crazy girl says. I look at the markets.
Did you hear I think she got pulled over for DUI recently.
No. Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this story must have been hidden because I have not seen it. I need to look it up. You talking about the Korean Jean-Pierre she got?
Yeah.
No.
I think she supposedly was coming from the White House or something like that. Yeah, she got pulled over for drunk driving. There's a lot of things I think a lot of news outlets don't amplify because it makes Democrats and everybody look bad.
Mm-hmm.
But they have no problem amplifying the other side. Like we mentioned earlier, Mary from Pop Culture Crisis, and then the Timcast IRL, which would be the parent company. They had Don Jr. call in a few days ago, and he's like, yeah, just imagine if I did have that stuff, you know, not even like the China, just if I got caught with an illegal gun, just doing drugs, flying around with prostitutes, like how much would they drag me through the media?
It's messed up. Because I remember how they did Ashton, his daughter, and his Jared, how they treated Jared in the media with Trump's daughter. Like they were talking all mad shit about him and stuff like that. I'm like, why don't I hear this about Hunter? Like that's just weird, you know? But no one ever really. I do think the Democrats have a perception problem. They want to be perceived. Like it's like, in a way, oh my God, maybe I've been reading the Bible like way too much, okay? But like, they want people to perceive them in a certain manner. So they put on these, I don't know, magical spells or whatever out there. I call it just propaganda to like, you know, let it brainwashes people's mind into believing that, hey, they are the good guys. And I'm like, have you seen the stuff that they've done? Like, have you seen how they go about, you know, vilifying their opponents? But yet they somehow still are convincing you that they're right. Now imagine if, you know, the other side was vilifying them the way that they were vilifying us. Wouldn't you stand up for them? I'm pretty sure your very devout Democrats, you know, I don't know, minions would definitely stand up to defend you guys. But you get so, but I just hear, you know, nothing from that side. I used to be I never voted, and I didn't understand what being a Democrat or a liberal or conservative was. But, you know, okay, so I didn't know what conservative or what being liberal really meant. I just knew
I feel like a lot nowadays they can't be tossed around either as a badge of honor or trying to discredit the other person.
I didn't remember.
It's like I don't know. A lot of people know what it truly means. I
didn't know, honestly. Just growing up, I didn't vote. My first time voting was this past election, 2020 election. I never voted before then, so I kind of consider myself to be more of a liberal because I didn't at that time I didn't go to church, but I definitely believed in God. But I also, you know, believed in everyone living their life. I had most of my friends were of the LGBT variety, not the T, but the LGBT variety. So I did sense that there was, you know, animosity towards them, and they were very welcoming towards me. They didn't care what anyone thought about them. They definitely had my mindset when it just came to just, hey, I just want to live my life. I'm not going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt me. I'm not going to push my values on you, and vice versa. Like, you know, I gravitated towards that crowd because, and they were all liberal. So I consider myself to be like that too, you know? But I didn't have any, you know, hard feelings towards the other side because they seemed like normal people to me as well. And it was just weird too, because all the places I got hired at was very conservative. I just didn't know the difference until like now. Like I remember hearing, people joking about the preppy kids and the boat shoes and all this other crap. But, and like when I would, like a lot of these places where, like how you would hear in the media today, like these white Christian nationalists, like a lot of these stores tended to be filled with, they were white and they were Christian and they still didn't care. They hired me, right? So I didn't, like, there were just people on both sides that I had friends with, and even in college. So it was just, I always consider myself maybe someone right in the middle, not too crazy socialist. I'm like, hell no, government fucked up my life in foster care. So no, I don't like y'all. But I also wasn't like, hey, no, KKK over here. No. So I was like right in the middle, right? So, but now it's not like that. Why does it feel like the people who I would normally hang out with, I had to like distance myself from that community, like those who are LGBT, because I didn't know what side they were on. I didn't know if they, wanted to trans the kids or, have them talk about sexuality. I'm like, you kind of knew how that was for you growing up. Why were you pushing this? So I had to like distance myself from them. And it's sad because y'all weren't like that before. Y'all were the cool crowd. Y'all were the people that, if I'm feeling down, you're the first people I want to talk to. First people I probably want to smoke with. Just let's go out and have some fun. Have some deep conversations. Now you can't even have that. Like, what the fuck happened? I don't know.
I think partly there was a lot of participation trophy kids that never learned, in a sense, kind of like hard discipline. They just expect certain things, and that if they cry loud enough, people just give in and just accept it. So they can't handle pushback from some people. Or but also I don't have the information on me to pull up, but I think there's certain charts and stuff that prove that some people really are going super far left with some of the ideology, that to them the center is the right, and it's like that's not how it is.
Why do you think that? Why do you think it's like, I obviously know it's social media amplifying, but what do you think has, I don't know, gotten a hold of people where it's like this mass psychosis where they're all, is it like this? I don't know whether you think it's selfishness, greed. What do you think it is that's pushing us towards this?
Well, the next topic I had to discuss was your thoughts on the trans ideology that Karen touched on right now. That some people have brought up, like Alex Stein. Have you heard of him? I know of him.
Oh yeah, the Alex Stein 99.
Yeah, Pimp on the Blimp.
Pimp on the Blimp. Yeah.
I actually got to meet him at was it the America Fest 2022. He's funny. He says sometimes that a lot of the people that identify as non-binary and transgendered are autistic, and so when you kind of push against something they're obsessed with or they built around themselves, they react violently. I think that could greatly play a role, but a lot of people bring up like antidepressants mess with people. I think social media plays a key. All the propaganda, the algorithms, how many? Cause like I said, I'm 30, so imagine 20-year-olds that were 10 years ago, now voting age, grew up with YouTube and certain things being forced on them, these television propaganda. But also, I think because of social media, there's also the disconnect where they don't search out a lot of the information. Like they say, conservatives and some liberals consume left and right media, whereas Democrats and left-leaning only do left. They don't actually listen to Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh, just their side talking about them and why they're so evil and whatnot.
I mean, I think that I'm like, in a way, like, I don't know if I would say they just lack intelligence, and I know that sounds really bad, but like, I've always
not intelligence,
curiosity as something as a sign of intelligence because you want to know, right? Like someone who doesn't want to know, who just want to be told everything and just bury their hair in the sand. I think
that's partly the school system too. You're taught to just kind of remember, not necessarily to think. I think that's part of Bush's fault when he passed the No Child Left Behind. I think everyone's kind of just pushed along without them actually developing a lot of the critical thinking skills. And also, there's the I forget what you would call it, but the phenomenon where some people don't have an inner monologue and they can't visualize when they think. So I think that might play a role if you kind of don't have that inner voice helping you think through things. You can't understand certain things to a great degree because you don't have that comprehension to visualize and think in much more than a two-dimensional.
That makes sense. I was homeschooled for a while, and a lot of the things I would read, I would play them in my mind like it's a movie, like to try to visualize it that way, to understand what's going on with how it would read. And it helped. So, and I always would just get curious. I think reading too. I know so many kids these days are just, and
they don't read.
I'm like, even when it comes to being able to buy a book and read it on a tablet and stuff, because I'm so used to textile and turning things, it drives me nuts reading reading a tablet. It makes me fall asleep so quickly. So I with work, when it comes to any type of programming language I need to learn or anything like stuff, I just buy the books so I can actually turn it. And if I need to write the notes, like typing the notes on a sheet and writing it, it's just, I don't know, for me, it connects, my hand connects to my brain and I just remember it because I wrote it down. So, I mean, I don't know, there's probably should be some studies done on that, like with memory retention and learning retention, learning abilities.
I think that too, the memory retention, a lot of people kind of like goldfish. Something that happens at the beginning of the year, by the end of it, it's already forgotten about.
It's like very short-term memory. And I'm like, I think too, with having ADHD, I have so many interests in so many things. My mind just wanders. So I get curious about things. I want to know what this is. I want to know what that is. And then it always ends up making sense later on. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I read that. It fits into, like just learning about money and, how everything works and interest rates. I remember being young. I didn't understand why interest rates were so important until I just started being curious. And I was like, it tells you how expensive and inexpensive money is and how to buy things. And if it's going to be more expensive to buy things, I didn't know why it was so important. And now I'm trying to understand how, credit and debits are working. Because I remember eventually, I can't remember what politician or some person said this, but in life, life doesn't just run on debit. You have to have credit, right? And I'm like, no, I was always scared of credit cards and all this other stuff. But when I started looking at credit scores, how they operate, and I'm still trying to understand, because even if you pay all your bills and then you pay it off, right? Your credit score will go down. You're like, wait, what? But why? It has to do with you have to have a certain amount of credit. It shows discipline. It shows how you can balance. And I'm just like, it makes sense now. And then assets, right? I think this is why I think having at least, you can't have a 2-parent household. At least have someone there who's going to mentor you, who has been an adult, who has gone through these things from both sides, from both, male and female. I just think, unless the female herself is in accounting or in that role.
I was just thinking, if she's at home, she would have a better idea of the budget.
Yeah. It's important.
Knowing costs, manage all of that you can pass down.
Because that's knowledge that, I don't know why no one's talking about that. It's so, but I think that's really vital information that's being you want to talk about equity. That's knowledge. That's the one thing that you can pass down to your children. That's very valuable. But hey, if you never grow up, how can you pass that down to them? How will they know when and when not
I
to
think there's a
buy
lot of
things to
factors that
sell?
feed into it. Yeah, a lot of people not growing up, taking the responsibility of being an adult, but wanting to act like one, wanting somebody to take care of them. The education system kind of failing them. Because, like I said, they're taught to just remember, not to think. Plus, water down history. They don't know everything. It's not properly explained, and they just get pushed along.
It's sad.
The trans ideology. So I think mental illness plays a factor that if a majority of who are non-binary and transgendered are autistic, then that is a topic to be discussed. But I don't think from the left there's all that pushback, and so you're not allowed to.
Yeah,
you're just
they
supposed
don't
to accept.
They also don't. I mean, because autism in a way is sort of like a mental. It's not a disorder, but it has something to do with the mental processes, right? And if someone's not mentally stable and they hear things like that,
and they only get the one side because of the circle of influence,
but
the
I
algorithms.
think it's wrong. It's like it's in a way that's what cults do. They always target isolated children for a reason, and it's a very cultist like behavior targeting those types of children.
Yeah, because I like to follow like Blair White and Bunk Angel. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
And they're both transsexuals, which is in a sense another mental illness because you have to be diagnosed with body dysmorphia, I think. Even they're like, yeah, just don't go after the kids. It's weird, but
like they know
they're called transphobic for saying that, and it's like,
and I remember
how they don't represent all. You don't have to agree, but how are they transphobic? They're trans.
I had followed Blair White for a while when she had her other channel, right? When she was really young. I remember it, and I was like, "Oh my god, that was her!" Like, I didn't even know that was a girl. I mean, I didn't know that was a transgender. I thought it was a girl, like straight up. Like, I have no problem with that community, especially
because live your life. Just
the difference, like they're
in your face about it, kind of shoving you down.
They're not trying to change reality.
They just want to live their lives.
Yeah, and like how you have so many people these days using individuals like her as like as like an excuse or like a reason to do certain things. I'm like, hey, did you even ask her if she even wanted to be included in your whole narrative? Because she's not sounding like the way that you guys are sounding, and like.
I definitely a factor of the social media of just wanting the attention. Like a lot of people accuse Dylan Mulvaney of seeking it because there's the video of him when he identifies as a gay man on Price is Right. And I don't know if I've seen it, but people have said it's so over the top.
Oh yeah,
it goes on way too long. And some of the videos, it's like, if you identify as a woman, why are you talking about girlhood? That's kind of weird. And then like the whole hiking heels, it's like they make hiking boots for women. It's not a thing. Hiking shoes too.
He's an actor, and I think that he just jumped onto something that made him money because, like you said, he before was a gay man.
What was it, 50,000 or so?
Yeah, with
for the Bud Light.
Oh no, Bud Light, yeah.
Bud Light and Nike was one of them, and they're both getting a lot of pushback.
Like that could have been an actual woman, especially for Nike. If you're gonna be selling shit to women, I'm sorry, trans women are not women. They're male, and no one's going to change that. Like if I don't know, everything was to blow up. All your manufacturing distribution centers that have all your estrogen and your hormones, all that crap, that was to all blow up. And you were to revert back to yourself. All the transgenders would revert back to their regular selves in some way, shape, or form. And guess who would still only be able to have kids? Women. Children will be the only one presented this opportunity is because of medical science breakthrough. This is not natural. Like that alone in itself should tell you it's not natural. But you know, with knowing that, that means you should want to acknowledge and say that, hey, only women can have children. It's been this way for it's been this way for years, fucking eons, since the beginning of time.
Have you seen the new Matt Walsh video when he says something like that? That if a woman can't, something went wrong, that obviously they were meant to. That's the role of the female of the species.
But to just ignore that, I don't
have the kids. The men, they throw the seed, and the women just catch it. You know, like we're sitting on a grapefruit tree. There's male and female parts that play a role to create the buds and the fruits.
And people just don't like. And I call this crazy. I think it's insane. So the animal kingdom, they know, hey, if I want to procreate, dolphins ain't got no problem distinguishing who is a male and what's a female.
Well, I've heard that argument that's like, oh, well, there's certain fish and reptiles that switch. It's like, yeah, but then they reproduce as that sex. A trans woman cannot reproduce as a woman. If junk's still attached, they can reproduce as a man because they're men.
And I'm like, honestly, you can't sit here and try to, like, are you trying to compare humans to a fish? Then that means you might as well just say our brains is probably just as small as a fish too. It's like, are you really trying to compare us to fish? Like, I don't know. I don't get these individuals. It's like, I don't know why someone would need to lie to themselves so much. I don't know why they would lie to yourself, why they had this need to want to lie to yourself, and then having the government like codify them into believing that, hey, your lies are true. It's like, what? Like, I'm confused. I thought you guys are all about safety, right? How can you sit here and say you're all about safety, but then say, hey, you can believe lies, and we're going to make a law so that your lies aren't, become truths. I'm like,
yeah, you wouldn't buy into a schizophrenic's delusion. Why necessarily believe into this so high up? Like we said, if you want to live your life, if you feel like you should have been that way in your outward appearance, but don't try to force everyone to agree with your reality.
And plus I do think that we live in this society, it's just full of naive people. And I think a lot of people are, especially in California, that voted for some of these dumbass policies. I think they're starting to wake up from their dream of wanting to accomplish utopia. I think they're waking up to the realities of it, right? So who's to say that they're not going to be men who see this as a way to gain advantage? Like, you don't think any man would take advantage of, hey, you can just identify as a woman and be put in women's spaces, be put up for women positions, or you don't think these individuals exist? They do.
I think that plays a role, but also people bring up the kink aspect of some men getting off at the idea of other people seeing them as a woman, and some women, the opposite. They get off of people believing that they're men. And I think it's disorder. A small gateway to other people just coming out and letting them do what they want.
It's very narcissistic. It's like the love of self has,
because you got the people in government that wear like dog masks, and that one that resigned after he stole the luggage.
Oh yeah. The luggage. What was his name? The guy who kept stealing luggage. And then there's, I got Twitter. So my old account, I refused to take it down. So I just let that account just go away. But the health secretary for the United States, I'm sorry, I will never ever call him a woman. He's not a woman. Like, and to have someone up as high as they are in a health position at that, I'm sorry, you are a man, and I don't even believe you even have your nuts and berries, your berries and twigs chopped off. You don't even have that.
That's something else that gets brought up in the conversation, that when you do get bottom surgery, it's really for other people's gratification. You don't get any pleasure from it.
I don't get it. It's kind of like I will definitely agree with Matt Walsh in a sense that whole ideology relies on someone else affirming them instead of they themselves saying, this is who I am and all this other stuff.
Yeah, because they're not comfortable in their body,
Mhm.
so they change it, and then they want you to say it's acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Or
obviously
to respect the new body when they couldn't respect the old body themselves.
there are obviously transgenders out there who do not think this, and I think it's messed up that their voices are just like shot down. Like, why don't you want to hear them? Why don't you want to hear them say, no, we know exactly what we are. We're comfortable with being trans women. We get treated just like regular women. So why the need to push this? Why don't I ever hear their voices being
Yeah, because I want to say Buck Angel and Blair have said that they just want to kind of blend in and not necessarily want the spotlight that they are trans. It's just
Buck,
see me as a man and a woman.
When I heard of Buck, I thought that was a man straight up. It wasn't until this whole, gender crap that I was like, oh my God, that was a woman. That was a woman. Holy shit, that man he looks like a dude. Like,
they were both on a show called You Are Here. Mm-hmm. Did you ever watch it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it was short lived. I don't think it made it past the year. There was some drama behind the scenes, but they were both on, and that's where I first saw Buck. But I think the funniest comment about Blair was they were like, Blair White makes my pee-pee confused.
I mean, because she's really pretty, and I when I first saw her when she was in her teens, I was like it was like late teens. I thought it was just a young girl. I remember her. It looked like it was in her bedroom. She was just talking and debating with people, and I thought it was just. I thought it was a girl. I thought it was a girl. Mm-hmm. So to her, she's passing. To a lot of people,
I think that's the goal, but it seems like I get there's a limit to how much you can make a masculine man look feminine, mm-hmm. but also it feels like some don't even try.
Yeah.
Or they have, like Dylan Mulvaney is accused of woman face, acting like a woman instead of trying to be one.
He has to have the bottom surgery.
Yeah, I think it's only just to kind of file down the chin. Mm-hmm. The chin bone's a bit, the jawbone.
He ain't serious about that.
Which could always, I've heard that things are easily to reverse to some degree, mm-hmm. facial things. But yeah, I think that's another thing is that you don't hear from the detransitioners because they get silenced or they're lying. It's all rainbows and butterflies.
In a way, I kind of feel like they're being pushed down, like Black conservatives or like how any Christians like these mm-hmm. days they're just being shut up, don't talk. Like we don't want to hear from you. You're good. Like,
you brought that earlier about the misogynist. It's like to oppress women makes you a misogynist. So aren't some trans women misogynistic when they tell women to sit down and shut up? Let us speak.
When I heard the Matt Walsh saying with the EMT mm-hmm. and how he had said how we want to speak the truth, right? It's always about the truth. Women who can't have children, there are women out there who can't have children, so they're not women. So I'm like, when I heard them, like, do you hear what's coming out of your mouth? That's a very misogynistic thing to say to a woman with you being a fucking man. Like, how do you not even process that? But, and then if you really, like a lot of women know this too. You can sit there and lie to yourself all you want, but the most misogynistic men out there are gay men. A lot of them are, and a lot of them are the more flamboyant kind. Every female I know will probably have a story in which those who were extremely flamboyant were the most misogynistic towards them. But apparently all they gotta do is put on a wig, take some estrogen, and you can just totally forget about that.
That's why I think you brought up South Park earlier. They had that funny one about Heather, who looked like Macho Man Randy Savage. And the whole joke was they identified 2 weeks ago.
I thought that was a joke. Like, I started listening more. I'm watching more South Park, honestly, during COVID because, like, they just got so much shit right that I thought was preposterous.
I love how they handled the Scientology one, where all the credits is just like John Doe or Jane Doe. It's like, you don't know who wrote this? Try us.
I haven't seen the Meghan Markle one, and
that one's pretty funny.
Everyone keeps telling me I should watch that one. Oh, privacy! I just see clips of it, I felt bad too because I actually really liked them separate at one point in time. I liked Harry because he was a bad boy, and I liked
Yeah, because they
her.
have a subplot about trying to change your image, but the last one is always victim. And so she goes in and they're like, oh, you actually had a membership. And it reads off, and that's very bottom, victim. But yeah, they just go around doing stuff in like the driveway to make people look at them, like Kyle, and then they get mad when he's not looking at them.
Oh man, it reminds me of that one meme where it's like this guy is like, "You're a victim," like he's so convinced that, oh my god, you know, you're like, it was like a shock. You're a victim. Like, even with all your stuff here, you are the victim. And then how they would set up GoFundMe's. I remember at one point they actually had a GoFundMe. They just split up from whatever was happening with the royal family, and they had decided to move here in America. And you already got this. I don't know what kind of package they got to move, and it was for their kid, for security, to pay for security and all this other stuff. I'm like, yo, but y'all are probably richer than all American combined all together, and you're asking for donations for security because you guys are not afforded it like the same way that the royal family has. But it was your choice to leave. I'm confused. You're just playing victim again. It's crazy. That's wild. But hey, I guess being a victim these days pay. It's so...
Because it's easy to manipulate people through their feelings, make people feel bad about you.
I used to think that was like a really cynical way of looking at people, because I would see it all the time. I'm like, it's just you're just trying to manipulate my emotions. But if I would say that out loud, oh my God, people would tell, oh my God, like, you're just so heartless. I'm like, no, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, the narcissistic, that they always flip it, that they're the victim and then gaslight you into believing.
It's like, what? Like, that's some, like, I don't know, it's very toxic, to be honest. I don't know why. I don't know. What do you think will change that? Do you think it'll ever change?
About which thing?
Like, how do we change that behavior in society? How do we get... I mean, because if we keep going down this road, it's just our society is just going to deteriorate. It really is. I'm like,
I think it's just part of it is just trying to be a voice in a sense, just to push back. You can't be scared to be canceled. You know, that's kind of what I want to do with this show. Is not that have to be the next Matt Walsh, but just another grain in the sand, tilting the scales. You know, trying to pull people not to the right, but back to the center. I think you just need a lot more people in the center that can see both sides. You got too much of a division.
I don't think there's a lot of like there's, you know, I'm not a I think the word is altruism. There's not a lot of altruism that's out here anymore. There's a lot of fake altruism out here where people, you know, I want to have a purpose. I want to do something for someone else. It seems to be so much fakeness out there. And I've been noticing this for a while too. There's just so many fake people here. And I remember traveling abroad, and, you know, people would be like, American. They would think that we're just so fake all the time. And I'm like, this is, in a way, this is where this being that way. And maybe it was because we're trying to be nice. And that's the reason why we fake so much. We've gotten to this point where we just want to appease everybody and everyone in their delusions, just because we don't want to seem as, or maybe we're just too scared. We're too frightened to say anything because we've been appeasing so much. We've put on a fake smile for so long to appease people because we just want to fit in, right? We just want to fit in. No one wants to be left out. No one wants confrontation. So that fakeness, I think, in a way, has like backfired. I just like with Canada, I think their kindness, in a way, has backfired against them, and I don't know how you fix that without having like a real purpose in life. Like, in a way, you have to have something worth.
I think that's why they
something meaningful.
don't like Jordan Peterson, because he kind of tries to push, say, wake up, when you wake up, make your bed in the morning, have certain structure to your life, and they didn't want that. They want to be able to do whatever.
And then if you have more things, like if you have your life more in line, you feel like you, in a way, do have a purpose to do something. But if you just do whatever you want, you're never going to be consistent on anything. You're going to change your mind all the time. You have nothing to work toward, nothing to work for, nothing to grow on, because we're not being adult. And I think one thing with being, growing up and being adult, you have to have a purpose. You have to stay steady. You have to,
you have to have that some kind of baseline struggle, something to strive for.
And whether that be having a family, or if you're, really geared towards a career, then that right there is your purpose every day. But even that, I think if work is your thing, I don't think that solely looking at the money and being motivated by the money should be something that
the money helps you live, but you should live for something else.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too that I think a lot of people have forgotten. Why are you choosing this job? Is it just, I understand just to pay the bills, but you also have to have a purpose, or else you'll probably just hate your job. You'll hate life. You'll hate why you're going to work. I do think that plays a role in it too. But either way, you still need to have some sort of purpose to help you, stay focused and, I don't know, bring some meaning to your life. Or else you'll get bored and start making shit up.
Or do OnlyFans. Well, I think that's a good segue into one of our last.
Okay.
Well, not last. There's a couple more topics. You touch on Andrew Tate if you want, because I brought up Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah.
People weren't happy with him that they pushed back and got something a bit more extreme with Andrew Tate. I'm skeptical about most people that charge you to have them give you vague advice. So I understand when he talks, statistics and facts and logic, he makes sense. But at the same time, I do feel like he is a bit of a con man. I mean, like I said, I've never paid to do what was it, the Husker U? But like I said, I'm skeptical about anybody doing self-help and trying to make money off of it. It's one thing to do something else, pay for that, so that's free. But to make money off of it, I definitely feel like it's scammy. But also, what do you feel about the charges?
No, I think they're really messed up, especially after the text messages came out. I think once the text messages came out, and all these other girls standing up, I think someone should have called it more into question if this is really, true. I think a lot of it, in a way, is because the media and so much cry from women wanting to just cancel him that, the forces to be acted on it and, caught the guy. I don't know.
I mean, there's a reason he was in Romania. It's a very corrupt country. But yeah, I think he provided some pushback to, like we were saying about the OnlyFans. Some people just don't want to wake up to the realization. They want to live in their reality instead of the shared reality we live in. But I think there is a normacy bias that, we live comfortably here in America.
Oh yeah.
And it's innocent until proven guilty, whereas most of the world, you're guilty until you're proven you're innocent.
Oh yeah.
So I can understand there being some gray area and why they would stayed. But I don't know. I have heard some of his videos, and I feel like for at least the sex trafficking, some of it holds, but only in the baseline understanding of the law. You know?
Yeah, because we don't know, their laws could be different compared to ours, and we don't know really what all went into this. Because in a way, I kind of see that they're trying to Me Too him too. Because I'm I being a girl, I remember, like, when I was young, 18, I did actually sign a modeling contract. It wasn't one that was, like, lucrative or anything. But I knew if I wanted to get into those roles, I would have to probably do some compromising things. I mean, you look at a lot of the women that I look at a lot of the actors that I grew up with, like Lisa Milano, and even like
yeah, because it's not about like the Harvey Weinsteins; it's the clothing too.
Mm-hmm.
How much are you willing to show?
Yeah, I like, and so many people want to act like that didn't happen, but being a girl and trying to go into that industry, I definitely felt that there was times where I might have to compromise or show a little bit more than I was comfortable with. And I mean, there were times I used to hate wearing skirts. I would pull them down, like even if they were to my knees, I would pull them down. I mean, I had to grow into like, you know, being a lady, but like to sit here and act like there weren't women willing to do that. I've seen women in the military sleep their way to the top.
I've seen the memes about like the Barrack Bunny and stuff. And just the one that sleeps with all the dudes.
Mm-hmm. But women want to act like we will never do that. Really? So all of y'all who complain about Me Too, all of y'all were victims. None of y'all thought about, okay, you know, this is wrong. You could have reported them, but you didn't. You did it, and maybe you just feel guilty now. I think that's like y'all want to act like we're just so victims in all this other shit.
Yeah, there is
so
bad faith actors. Like you brought up the text messages by the ones saying they were going to do this just to get that payday.
And I'm like, do you even come back and even try to, like apologize and know what you did was wrong? Like, or will you just find your next victim? Because I think a lot of them do.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I can't really say yay or nay to what happened with Andrew Tate. But I think that there were some girls who did it and they knew exactly what they're. Hell yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, I think both can be true. I think, there could be bad faith actors and true victims.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. But like I say, on just like the base understanding of sex trafficking, some of the stuff he says, like, oh, you're my property, you stay on the compound, you don't leave, that could be considered like coercion. Mm-hmm. He's made mention about he would just print out talks documents just for them to sign it and then just throw them away. That I can consider that not just tax fraud, but frauding them into thinking it's a legitimate business.
Okay, so have you ever heard of voyeur dorms here?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you this. So when I hear what he had said about, oh, you're my property, you'll be in this house, you can't leave. Like,
because there was an accusation that he would keep the passports in the safe and stuff.
See, that's the thing. These accusations, we don't really know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I hear about that, the conversation that he had, even if it was recorded, in what context was it played? Was it just his voice, or was this like a whole conversation? Because a lot of times they won't even include the whole entire conversation. So I'm like,
some of the videos I see, it's him talking, but yeah, it's usually clip form on like Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And that's so I understand there is granted context, but like I said, based on understanding of the law, you could interpret it that it was shady. So
there's these things called voyeur dorms, and no, I didn't. So okay, in college. in my undergrad. Okay, this is my first year. Yeah, this is when I realized, like, a lot of times I'm just like, I'm not built for that life. It's time for me. Like, it was great for the rent, but it's time for me to leave. So in Tampa, I was in Wesley Chapel at the time. So one of my best friends, she had a sister who would get all this money from doing very sort of risque photos for like calendars and stuff like that, right? It looked very lavish lifestyle. The homes that they would have us in were extremely nice, and how there was like big brother or big sister or whatever. They would have these voyeur dorm websites where you can watch girls cams. There'll be cameras and all that other stuff in it. Your rent was completely free, but you pretty much went on about your life. Of course, you would assume that, guys or people viewing would see certain parts of your body, while you're changing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, you couldn't once the cameras were going to be installed, you couldn't put You couldn't block the cameras. You couldn't do any of that because you'll get docked off. You'll get some of your pay docked off. So, like, you did, like, once the cameras came up, you did sign, you did, like, sign a lease, guarantee, saying you're going to stay here for this long, and you had to follow the rules of that house. And that was here in Florida. What's the job of Florida? Like I said, it was a very nice house, very nice neighborhood. You never knew. And all these, like, no one really thought too much about girls going into a nice house because there are really no guys are there.
Mm-hmm.
No guys are there. None at all. So these things do exist. So, I mean, like, when I hear like that being said over the phone, in a way, if I signed that contract, hey, in a way, I am sort of that person's, part of their property in a way, because I signed that contract to live there. I signed that contract to show things. I'm like, oh, hell no. That's when I'm like, the cameras get in, I'm leaving. I'll help you set up the house. I'll help you set up the furniture and all this other stuff. But I ain't participating when those cameras come on. I'm like, I gotta show my face, I gotta show my face. Mm-hmm. But
you want some more?
Sure. I'm like, it's this whole Andrew Tate thing. Men and women probably did some bad things.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think he's shady. I don't know. I don't know if I would go far say like he's outright guilty. Maybe I might lean because of some of the things I've heard him say. Mm-hmm. But I always kind of viewed him as a character, which I think he said that when he got banned. He was like, "Oh no, don't take me serious. It's just it's an act. It's a facade," which proves that, in my opinion, he's not an alpha. If you have to beg to come back. But a lot of people were in his defense because first right, which is commendable to be like, no, he shouldn't be banned no matter what he says, even if it's stupid or you disagree or comes off as misogynistic. But I think it is a little fishy that 6 months is a long time for no official charges. Mm-hmm. I do think even if he is or isn't, just that alone kind of feels like maybe somebody else wanted him out for a little bit so they can come in.
There's like even a video going around
to
where
get his either to silence them mm-hmm. or to just get his influence on the Camgo kind of.
Oh yeah, there's like this video going around where since he's been out, there have been this one kid who goes around asking, "How do you feel about entertaining his brother being out?" And you have a lot of the feminists saying that he should still be in jail, and he's like, "For what though? What exactly?
Yeah, there's no official charges. And they're investigating."
I'm like, imagine if men said that about women. We don't want you out. You should just be in jail. And then be asked, but for what?
That kind of goes back into the Trump thing we talked about. It's like, for what? What did he do?
For what? Like, y'all need to stop. Yeah, like if you have to put this on, that's why I'm like, I try to be nice. I try to think before I really want to do things because I'm like, what if this is on the other foot? It is so hard to do that. Like to stop what you're doing.
Are you good or do you want some more?
Yeah. It's so hard to do what you're doing to just stop and reflect. Like, what if someone were to do this to you? It is so hard. Even when you're just like, oh, But
so that's another thing about him that I think it's funny. Well, not necessarily kind of about him, but when people say he does good work waking people up to get away from porn, it's like he runs a Camgo website. How can the both be true in that sense that he's waking people up to get people away from it when he's still profiting off of it to some degree?
It kind of, in a way, like, I think a lot, to be honest, this is what I'm learning too. A lot of people, when they're young, they're just like the rest of us. They don't want to work till they're 60. So a lot of them, in a way, they do kind of sell their soul to make a whole bunch of money in their 20s. And then, a lot of that shit you got to sell your soul for is some really deep, fucked up shit. You know good and well, if you had kids, you wouldn't want your kids doing that. You wouldn't want your kids doing that. So I know a lot of them, they'll make their money, right? And then when they get older, they want to put that money into something good,
Yeah, I think it'd be one thing if he had stopped, but to still be doing both, it's a bit hypocritical. In some aspects, in some degrees.
Yeah, because you're like losing your way of life. You're losing your only revenue. So the way you got to replace it with something, right? What you're gonna replace it with? Like you can replace it with some teachings that are good, but slowly you need to get rid of that camera. You need to shut.
Everybody likes a redemption arc, but
yeah,
if you're not actively seeking it, you're just saying, "Don't do this," while I'm still doing it. You can't.
If you're not shutting those sites down, then it is very hypocritical. I can see, like I said, I can see you shutting things down while you get your but if you're not making any change, then you're causing a problem too. Mm-hmm. It's like you're playing both sides.
It's the opposite of kind of like the OnlyFans in a way, contributing to the downside.
I mean, rappers do it all the time. I hear them say it. Like they'll say they know exactly what they're selling to their communities, right? Mm-hmm. But they also know that they got to put food on the table. And I'm like, in their mind, a lot of them, they feel like they hope they don't suck in, they hope they don't suck in as many people as they think they're going to suck in. But ultimately, they know it's damaging. They know it is. So it's, I think after a while, though, that's another thing. I never understood why people, when they listen to that type of music or watch certain type of shows, why do they want to embody it? Why, don't they understand it's entertainment? It's not supposed to be taken for real. It's not supposed to be digest. But why are you living your life like that? It's like, look up the definition of what entertainment means. Does it say this is what you should live your life by? No, I'm good.
Okay.
But it's just, how do you change society from not, hey, you need to understand this is not real life. That is just, but I guess what you listen to, what you read, it actually really does affect you. I just, I never really understood people like that.
I think that goes back into kind of like the critical thinking stuff. They just view it as facts without digesting and thinking it through. Are you a Robin Williams fan? Yeah, I think most people are. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite is Bicentennial Man. Mm-hmm. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I did.
And he's the robot. Mm-hmm. It's funny how the daughter was considered liberal for wanting to be living in kind of like freedom and whatnot. And she replies, she's like, "Oh, it's not my doing. You gave him the books. What did you expect to happen?" I think there's certain themes and aspects that people lack because they don't expand the horizons, taking in different viewpoints.
Yeah. My other favorite movie by him is What Dreams May Become. That movie was like, oh, that's scary. But I don't know. I think people definitely need to read, find more hobbies, be outside more. Technology, it does give you that instantaneous contact with anyone around the world, but it's so impersonal.
Also disconnecting.
Yeah. And I used to always think that my parents were like old school. I'm like, oh my God, I would never be like that when I get older. And then now when I see so many people with texting, like I can't engage your emotions. I can't engage what you really think. I can't hear the influx in your voice. I can't really tell what's going on. But somehow I'm supposed to read your mind when I read your text messages.
Key and Peele skit, when you see that, how one texts and how the other one perceives it, that's pretty funny.
It's like, it's so impersonal, like, but so many people, they live in that world, and it definitely make it so you can be as fake as you want, and people will still think you're perfect. I mean, well, you're married, but like with dating apps, man, I've gone on dates with men and they would tell me like, oh, you look like your pictures. I'm like, I don't know how you respond to that. Like, how am I supposed to look like? And then I'm like, I haven't turned any of my apps to.
I think that's plays a role too. All the how, in a sense, how advanced the makeup applying can get. You can hide certain things. That's why there's the meme about take her swimming on the first date. There's a difference between just a little bit to kind of like highlight certain things, and there's another one to go full makeup artist.
It's crazy. It's like some voodoo crap. It's just like, look, I understand being beautiful and stuff and all that, but Like, especially when women say, "Oh, I do it for myself." Okay, really, you do this for yourself. So when you're home alone and you're not doing one of those get ready with me videos, you're just in the house by yourself. You put on a full face of makeup. Bullshit. I call cap of that. You know you're doing it when you step outside for
If not a
appearance.
little touch up for the selfies, because how often do women really post no makeup days? It's rare, I think.
Very rare. But you know, they'll sit there and say, we
And then
wear
all the
makeup for
filters too.
ourselves. It's like, I don't get it.
I've seen the joke, the meme with all the filters. If you go missing, nobody's gonna really know what you look like.
They're not gonna know what you look like. They can literally pass you in the street and they're like, oh, I don't know her. And like, you don't look anything like your picture. Like, that's crazy. And it just reflects on the fakeness that we have in society. The fakeness is seen as sincere now these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
All right. You can step away from politics and step into the strange and the weird and talk about aliens.
Oh my God, aliens.
For a bit.
I mean, my handle is Insane for Stargate, so
which is cool about the area, the sand dunes. That's where they shot Stargate, the movie, and I think some of the series and Star Wars is out there in the dunes. I think technically it's the California side, but they're fairly close by.
I haven't, you know. It's funny. I think now it's funny how they talk about UFOs are real now. On the the White House press secretary, it's not unidentified. It's not UFOs anymore. We clearly know what they are, but it's funny to hear them say unidentified flying objects on the White House in the White House. It's like, okay.
And some people are so desensitized to it. They're just like, they said it and they moved on. Like, it didn't seem like it had a greater impact.
You know, being a scientist, I will say this about aliens, because I love anything sci-fi. Actually, besides watching like the Christian Channel, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, and like Touched by an Angel, my parents didn't let me watch anything on the Sci-Fi Channel. There was also like Bonanza and stuff like that, but anything on the Sci-Fi Channel. Mm-hmm. So just because they seemed to be more ahead than things, there wasn't like this whole tension between, like Earthlings, everyone on Earth. Is more like international, like. So it kind of put in your mind that everyone on Earth was like, in unity about everything, right? So, like, just being a scientist when it comes to things, the reason why I think there's aliens out there, I don't think that only one planet, like, it's like only one planet out of a multitude of, galaxies. We're the only one.
I forget where it comes from, but there's a phrase that if we are alone or we're not, both are terrifying thoughts.
What?
That if we are alone or if we're not, both are terrifying thoughts.
It is. Because it's like this is the reason why I believe in God. Like, there's so many things I've seen in life, and then with just trying to figure things out, like, it's some things you can't explain. So I'm like, yeah, that was really scary. Like, who decided that this one planet, like that?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I don't know how they try to rationalize.
I don't know how well you can see the stars, but you're telling me in all that you can see, there's nothing else out there.
I know. I don't get how some people believe that they're like, we're the only
Not
ones.
necessarily it has to be intelligent life like us, just life in general.
Yeah, just life in general. It's like
some kind of mammal or fish type, insectoid.
If you're really open-minded, you would know about that. You would at least be curious about that, or at least have the rationale to believe that, hey, like, you're right. It is very, whether or not we are here alone or there's other out there, it is very terrifying because
if we're not alone, then what is out there?
Yeah, it's like, that's a really, really good saying, because I've never looked at it. I've never approached like other signs of life outside of what we know from that perspective before.
Do you know much about the series Dune?
Yes, the original. It's been so long that I watched it, but I remember that and the Children of Dune. I remember watching that in Children of Dune. That's one of my favorite. Both.
Because I heard that about that book series is that they kind of answer that question without bringing it to the forefront. Is that we all alone in intelligent life. The only people out there are humans, descended from Earth, other than small life like the sandworms and other little things on the planets. But there's no other intelligent life out there in the Dune series.
Because I remember, like, we would hear things.
I mean, I guess you could argue that the sandworms had some kind of intelligence, but again, not to like all level.
I don't remember, which Egyptians would say these things, but when it came to the pyramids, like some of these designers, they would say they would have visions and stuff like that. Like, did they really have visions, or did someone actually teach them this stuff? Like, did someone, like, how did that?
I like to think it's a bit of both. That we were visited because all ancient cultures, the gods came from the sky.
Oh yeah.
And they've named certain systems, and there's no way they could have known about it without like advanced telescopes.
Oh yeah, you're right. And that was
it's very eerie.
Then. Yeah. So someone.
But also, I think it was manpower. They probably just gave us something to help move things. Or some kind of way. I mean, I know some people have proven you can do certain things with just like logs and just momentum, like spinning things. It's very easy, but also I think technology could have been involved. Like they say the Sphinx is older, far older than what it seems. You brought up like the Atlantis earlier before we started.
Oh yeah. I do like. Where do you get? I mean, there's our stories, like real things. Real life becomes, word of mouth, and those word of mouth becomes myth, legends, and then those legends become myth.
And you're limited in vocabulary, how you can describe things.
I started like when I look at a lot of these stories, and then I started like actually when it comes to the Bible, I always thought of the Bible as some very fictional, just. I always thought it was fiction, just like just instructions on how to
live your life.
Yeah, live your life. I've never.
I mean, some people argue that's not supposed to be taken as literal. Some of it is metaphorical, but then some argue that it is.
I always thought it was just literal, and I just thought it was a good piece of confusing book to read when I was a kid, but. It wasn't until later, and I mean, I really love history, but more like European and American history. I never really looked into like African history and the Middle East history, none of that stuff. Just, I mean, besides, I mean, I did get into like Greek history, like a little bit, a Roman history, a little bit, but Roman Empire when it comes to European history. But they didn't really delve deep into like, the African nations and what the Ottoman Empire really was. We just knew that, it's just the Ottoman Empire. Like,
like the Moors.
Yeah. Like, I didn't know what the Abyssinian and what, Assyrian, I didn't know exactly where they were on the map, right? I just knew that was all history. But then I started reading the Bible more as an adult and seeing, tracing actually like the generations from like Abraham and then matching where the hell they went and on the map, and then having those words translated from the Bible into like real into like today's time. I'm like, oh my God, these places that they talk about in the Bible, they've been translated to now. And I'm like, oh my God, these kings were real.
I heard something about in the Bible. It talks about, I don't know if it's splitting the race, but how essentially skin tones kind of came to be. Is that some stayed and got the melanin, I think what it is, and got a bit darker. Some moved south and kind of built in like the cliffs, and then eventually moved back up north to the Caucasian mountains, and that's how we get the term Caucasian, light skinned. And it's kind of interesting how certain terms come to be and how
I didn't even
myths
know
and legends, but I don't know.
I didn't know that that region Caucasian was. I didn't know that was even a thing. Like it wasn't until I started reading, the Bible, and like trying to match where all these people went to history and reading about them, actual history. I'm like, and then trying to understand the metaphors in the Bible.
Through the Caucasians that they migrated up into like the Europe and whatnot.
It's crazy. I'm like, wow, this shit is like, it's real. Like, all it's like, that's how I think it's real. I'm like, I believe it's real because you can find these people in the Bible and history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that was a real person. I'm like, holy crap. I thought all this was fake, but it's real. I would see, like, they even have some of these really old, like biblical places that they had in the Bible that we would talk about in the Bible. They're actually really real in real life. So I think it's like Mount Haram,
I think I've heard it.
Yeah, where the angels fell. I thought it was fictional mountain. No, it's real. Half of it is like owned by Israel, and the other half is like controlled by Syria. On the Israel side, there's a ski slope. Till this day, I'm like, wait, what? Like, I thought that was a fictional mountain, and then I'm like, what else is fake here? So I started
there's
reading.
The one mountain, I forget what it is, that Noah landed on, and for a few decades, people have argued if there's a structure there that it looks like in the shape of a boat, but nobody can really get there to test it.
I'm like, that's just, honestly, I think it's creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie. I thought,
yeah, because it's a satellite image and it just looks like there's something shaped like a boat.
There's some really, really, really old, so there's like some soldiers. I can't remember their website, but there were some soldiers who had went over to Iraq, and King Nebuchadnezzar. So his whole entire kingdom that he had that was sacked. I can't remember exactly which castle or which region they had conquered, and it was sacked. It, like, some of the remnants of that city is still around, and they took pictures and posted it on their website. But you can Google that King Nebuchadnezzar and the place that got sacked while he was there, and you'll find their page, and they go and tour it all. And when I was over there, I didn't know that Iraq had the Tigris and the Euphrates, one of the rivers.
The Persian Empire.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that. And it's like, wow, there's so much history in here. And like, there's so many old places, old villages, and they're all ruins now. But they still exist where you can go and take little pictures of it. I think it's amazing to just to see. I would love to go back over there just to visit in those ruins, because I always thought they were fake. I just always thought they were fiction. But anyways, going back to aliens, with just knowing all that stuff and piecing this shit together between, like, history and the Bible, I think it's so asinine not to think that there are aliens out there.
Yeah, because if God did create us, why would he just stop here? Would he not spread it to other planets just to see? And then evolution, if it happened here, why couldn't it happen somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. I do think it's crazy. It kind of makes me wonder, like, with our research and development, and, America launching off, things into space, and probably these other countries launching off things into space. Do you think they probably heard some communications from other?
Yeah, well, there's the whole black satellite theory, that there's an actual satellite up there monitoring us, has been for who knows how long, that they're aware of.
That's crazy.
There's the theory that the moon's hollow, because all the craters only go so deep, so they think it could have been like an artificial satellite.
Oh no.
That's why people think we haven't been back to the moon. There was something there that why we haven't.
That's crazy. But, if there is another life out there, I don't think they would want to stop here. Bees, but okay, they're
It
gone
depends
crazy.
what they needed, but then again, yeah.
Do you think if aliens landed here and people saw that they were there and they were like not benevolent, you know, they were bad, very, very bad actors, do you think people here would be so brainwashed to think that they're here to actually help us and welcome them in?
I think to some degree that some people would accept them if they came down and were like, "Oh, we come in peace." They'd be like, "Oh, okay, show us what you got," and then not realize what they're doing. I think there was. Did you ever watch that Bumblebee Transformer movie?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think John Cena's character a lot. I've seen that line pop up. It's like the best dialogue in the film. It's like they're called Decepticons. Why do you think they're here to help us? Why do you assume they're here for good? Like Decept is in their name.
That's actually pretty funny. I would just turn around and look at them too and be like, "You're on your own." I'm like, tell me how that turns out. Wait, also, you know what? You're probably not going to be here.
Also, did you ever watch Mars Attacks?
Huh?
Mars Attacks? Oh, that's a pretty funny Tim Burton film. Well, it's they do come down, say we're in peace, but then they start attacking us, and then they kind of laugh about it, and they're like, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding," and then they do it again.
Okay. I have seen V. The V was pretty good show. It only lasted for the original and then the new one. I really like the new one. It was really interesting. But I did see Fallen Skies, and that was a really good.
I think I watched a little bit in the beginning, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah.
But Mars Attack, you should definitely watch. A lot of famous people. Like there's a young Jack Black.
Oh really? Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to do it. That's actually really funny. Man. Aliens. Oh, if Elon ever made the spaceship that could take you, would you ever get on it? Be like, hey fam, let's go. We're gonna get out of here.
I don't know, probably not. Because you just never know.
That's true.
I mean, it's certainly. I mean, maybe down the line in like the 10th voyage, but I don't know if I would want to be number one.
Okay.
Or even, I mean, something could go wrong in the 1000th voyage too. You know, like planes and trains. Mm-hmm. They crash all the time, but still, like, I don't know if I would be one of the first few.
Well, not maybe like the first few, but let's say like, okay, everything's set up, but let's say it's going to be like a really small community, like something like maybe a quarter of Tucson. Like Tucson's really small anyway. There's nothing really there, and you know, you're not going to have the same luxuries. You'll have a home and everything like that, but you'll still, you know, like everyone will have a job. There's no staying home. There's no like, there's no guarantee, which is like of like, you know, hey, you're going, like everything will be, you know, I guess in a way taken care of, but like there's no guarantee of safety nets or anything like that. Like everyone has to literally contribute. There's no like, yeah, obviously you'll have days off and stuff. Yeah, like the pioneer days, like. You know, you'll have I don't know. I wonder if a lot of people would take that out. Like if once they know it's safe and stuff like that. And the only downside is you'll probably be more lonely. You won't have as much of the, you know, the Burger Kings and all that other stuff. You won't be.
Or it'll probably only be a matter of time before they set up shop.
But it'll probably take like 30 years maybe, or maybe 20 years.
To get there initially, maybe, but once it's settled, I feel like they will pop up like they do now, just crazy.
Would you wait until it's all settled, or would you be like, okay?
I want to be the first in the door.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, me too. I'm like, maybe not the first voyage, but actually, if I don't have kids, yeah, then I'll probably be in the first voyage. But like, after a few colonies have set up, yeah, I would totally go. I'd be like, I'm good. I'm done with the craziness. Everyone there says it's a man and woman. We're good. All right. No one got it. We're good. I'm going. Bye. I would feel too, you know, when that's starting, they won't have the luxury of all these different crazy social problems that we have now. You know,
it could be a matter of time before it creeps back in, but yeah, at least you can have at least set to zero as much as you can without great devastation.
They'll be based in reality. They would have to be if they want to survive. Like, it's like, you know, you can't say that we're on Earth now. You know, let's say you're somewhere where the atmosphere isn't as great outside.
Like Mars.
Yeah, and you have to, you know, it's a more like an capsule types, you know, bubble, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna step outside this bubble. It'll be just like on Earth. Like, reality says that
you're gonna learn the day.
Yeah. I think you'll have to be based in reality up there. You can't. People are gonna die. You don't have that luxury of just
play it safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you have to worry about, like, you know, because I think with Mark Kelly or the other Kelly, like their bone density being up there with the gravity and stuff, you know.
I was just thinking that, yeah, you have the other radiation and the less gravity to affect you long term.
And then, like, if you're transgender, how is your hormones gonna affect you with all of that? I'm like, there's just like, I don't think we could bring y'all up there. Y'all are not medically clear. Sorry, like maybe in like 1,000 years. Yeah, like that would be fucked up. But you know, there's just so many unknowns up there that you would have to
plan for.
Yeah.
Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, you'll have to be just based in reality. Just, or also you're like doomed to fail from the start, I would think.
Okay. Well, I think this is probably a good spot to end. I think definitely would love to have you back. There's a lot more to talk about, but we kind of started late, so it's dark and cold. Do you want to shout anything out?
No, just, you know, hi. Thanks for tuning in and watching.
All right. Well, this was the podcast. Thank you for watching.